How's it going, everybody? Happy New Year. This is the first episode of the Super Magic Show, the first live stream of 2026 here on the Geekdom 101 YouTube channel. Welcome. I hope you guys are doing really, really well today. I hope you had a good New Year's. I hope you guys, nothing crazy happened. I saw, on New Year's, I went to a party and I saw some people getting pulled over on the streets, probably because they were drinking, and hopefully you guys were safe and everything went well. I'm happy to see you guys back as we begin 2026, which promises to be a big year for Dragon Ball. In fact, without giving too much away, you could say it's a new beginning for Dragon Ball. We're going to talk about on this episode something that's made the news recently. I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to do a video about it, but then I realized it's probably better to just talk about it. And I chose the perfect co-host for this episode because we've talked a lot about manga, and this episode is going to focus quite a bit on the Dragon Ball Super manga and the OG Dragon Ball manga, Toriyama's masterwork from 84 to 95. I'm talking about Toriyama versus Toriyama's editor and very close friend, Kazuhiko Torishima, versus Toriyama's most recent student, Toyotaro. And me and my co-host, who I'm going to bring on in just a minute, are going to be watching a special translation that was done courtesy of Venixis. I want to give a huge shout out to Venixis. If it wasn't for Venixis' hard work translating the interview, because it is in Japanese, I shout out to Venixis. Your magic is real, and I believe in you, and we all love you. I speak for everyone when I say that we love you for all the work you've done. I'm feeling a lot of love from the Dragon Ball fandom. Today on social media, I've been posting a lot of stuff about the new color corrected Dragon Ball Z's that have come out from Seed of Might, as well as the upscales being done by Neo Raws. Now, if you're curious about that, that's going to be next week's episode. So mark it down in your calendars right now, y'all. January the 8th, here on the Geekdom 101 YouTube channel, Vanner is coming back, and we're going to be talking about the new Seed of Might color corrected Dragon Ball Z. If you've never seen Dragon Ball Z like this, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure 99% of you haven't, because I'm someone who's seen everything. Derek Padula has seen everything. Miss Dare Fusion has seen everything. These old school Dragon Ball fans, we've seen Dragon Ball in every which way possible, but we've never seen it like this, with the correct colors, beautiful looking image. It's the best. We'll talk more about that next week. This week, it's Toyotaro versus Torishima, and we're going to have an unbiased discussion about it. Let me go ahead and bring on my co-host for this episode of the Super Magic Show. I haven't talked to him since last year. Oh, it's been so long. Actually, it has been a while since I've talked to him, but he is a regular on the channel. My Mongolian I'm trying to think of a word that's like kind of gay, but not all the way. I don't want to say partner, because everyone's saying that now. Let's just bring on Jordan. What word would you use to describe you, bro? Heterosexual life partner?
Sure, we can do that way.
Let's do heterosexual life partner. Jay and Silent Bob, exactly. You know what, though? You, me, and Jay and Silent Bob have something in common, my friend. That's true. That's all I'm going to say. Jordan, man, it's 2026. Dragon Ball's got a new beginning. I want to talk to you about this Toyotaro versus Torishima thing. Now, we're going to be going over the translation, but I'm going to give you guys a summary of what's been going on. Jordan, please feel free to jump in with any thoughts you may have. Long story short, Kazuhiko Torishima is Toriyama's original editor. He's the man who discovered Akira Toriyama. Okay, so here's the reality, guys. All right, because I see a lot of disrespect on social media for this guy, and I want you guys to, and look, you don't have to agree with him, because ultimately Jordan and I don't fully agree with everything he has to say either. But here's the truth. You got to respect this man. He's been in the industry for 50 years. And he's the guy who discovered Toriyama and got him to work on Dragon Ball, Dr. Slump, and Dragon Quest. He literally discovered the creator when he was just in his 20s, right? And because of that, none of us would be here if it wasn't for Torishima. I wouldn't know Jordan. Well, probably not. Most of you guys in the chat would have no idea who I am. Dragon Ball would not exist. Torishima was the guy who told Toriyama, you should make the manga more action-packed. And that's when it got popular. Like, this is a guy who you don't have to agree with everything he says, right? But there is a lot of things we should be grateful for. I speak for long and repeats himself so much. Shit gets annoying. Well, it's my stream, brother. I'm sorry, but that's me. I've always been like that. If it bothers you so much, go do your own stream. We're here to talk about this. So, Jordan, I want you to tell the people what you feel the importance of Torishima is and why, even if you don't agree with him, he's still someone that I feel we should listen to his opinion because we may learn something from him. And there is something we're going to learn from him on this stream today.
Well, I do think that people have this weird cognitive dissonance when it comes to Torishima. Torishima is a money first creator. He's thinking about how to create something successful financially. And he's always been, good at coming up with things that are successful financially. Like he is good at that. He's the one who told Toriyama to go more in the martial arts direction because Toriyama himself specifically said that he was basically dedicated to continuing to do a parody of Journey to the West, and that Torishima essentially got after him so many times that he was forced to make the manga more action oriented because it wasn't doing well. At first it was kind of just considered another Journey to the West story, which there were thousands at the time. And, it does help popularity in some sense because that story has a big fan base, but also it makes Dragon Ball just another copy of another product. So Torishima really did encourage Toriyama to make the product more unique and less like, what Toriyama originally intended to do. And that did push the series to new heights that it wouldn't have been pushed to otherwise. And also, Torishima is the one that told Toriyama that he should do something kung fu oriented because he cared about it and he loved it, and that if he loved it so much that he should do a manga about things that he loves and cares about. And Toriyama told him, he was like, actually, that's the reason I don't want to do a kung fu manga, is because I do care about these things. I am a fan of these things, and that's the reason that I don't want to do it. And Torishima was very, very insistent that he did because he could see the passion that he had for that topic. So yeah, Torishima is instrumental in us getting Dragon Ball, and also getting Dragon Ball in the form that we would get it,
There's a lot of things that Torishima has done throughout the years. I mean, he's the reason we even have 17, 18 and Cell. And I want to make this clear to everybody. Torishima is the guy who discovered Akira Toriyama, but he's also, even after he stopped being Toriyama's editor, he was replaced by a guy named Yu Kondo. But even after that, Toriyama and Torishima stayed very, very close. Like, Toriyama made fun of Torishima because Torishima is very strict. Magan is asking, do you think Torishima is too strict? Well, Akira Toriyama himself said that. We don't have to say it because Toriyama knew him on a very personal level. And yes, he's very strict. Even though he was not Toriyama's editor for all of Dragon Ball, he was still in communication with him all the way until the Resurrection F days, because remember, it was Torishima that talked about how much he liked the idea behind Resurrection F. So, which I didn't think was that, revolutionary, but neither here nor there. The point is that, yes, Torishima is very strict. But once again, one of the things I want to talk about here, because I hope to have some positive influence on the fandom, I would hope, is to the people that are being disrespectful to Torishima. Look, I'm not saying you don't have a right to defend Toyotaro, because that manga piece that Toyotaro did that we're going to break down in just a minute, a lot of people love it. and other people hated it. It's very split. I see people all over the place, smart people, not just like the dumb fans and the smart fans. No, you have a big mix, and it's a very subjective opinion. But if you like Toyotaro's work, that does not mean that Torishima is some kind of a nut job. Yes, he does come off like a crotchety old man, but I still think he should be respected.
He's matter-of-factly about his criticisms, and a lot of the stuff that he says with the intent of boosting sales and making the product better. Now, my concerns with what he's saying is, and I do kind of understand what he's trying to say, but there's this thing that he said about how he feels that what Toyotaro is doing is essentially just copying Toriyama.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to if you're continuing Dragon Ball, right?
That's what I was getting ready to say. It's Dragon Ball. You can't copy Dragon Ball if you're doing official Dragon Ball. I do think that logic is very strange. I think what he's trying to say is that he thinks that Toyotaro could improve as an artist if he would reach inside and not focus so much on being like Toriyama. That's like the most generous interpretation I can give to what Torishima was trying to say there. I do think that he's basically trying to say that maybe Toyotaro would improve if he would stop just trying to be Toriyama all the time. And if that is his opinion, I could see that as valid. Maybe he would be a bit better if he would try to be a bit more unique and do something different. But that's the only thing. There's a few things that he said that have been kind of concerning to me because it almost sounds like he's trying to make Dragon Ball not Dragon Ball. But that's being ungenerous about the interpretation of what he's saying. The generous interpretation of what he's saying, in my opinion, is that he does see potential in Toyotaro, but he thinks that Toyotaro is kind of limiting himself by trying to be so much like Toriyama. So,
and we're going to break down exactly what Torishima said because we do have the video of it with the translations. We'll be doing that here momentarily. I'm going to pull up the video and then we're going to go through like segment by segment, Jordan and I, and kind of discuss it. But the point I'm trying to make is this. The man has earned the right, being a guy who has worked on Dragon Ball going back to has worked with Toriyama, going all the way back to the early 80s. He's someone who, even if you disagree with him, you should still listen to him and think about what he says. If he says that he prefers paneling to be like this, it's worth listening to. It's worth listening to. Okay. I'm going to get this out of the way now.
Yeah. We even I make manga and we use Torishima's book for our manga. He is valuable as a person.
Yeah, we'll get to more of that in a minute. He's very valuable. I'm going to get this out of the way now. I'm going to have mods start timing people out. We're not discussing leaks. All right. If you're going to come here for leaks, you're going to be disappointed. I've said it on 5 streams in a row. I don't care what you think. I'm not discussing the leaks, dude. If that's what you're here for, kindly leave. That's not what we're talking about. But we are talking about, even though we're not going to talk about leaks, we are talking about a current event because this is literally happening now. This Torishima Toyotaro thing is literally happening right now. Jarmel Herd 731 says he also said he would like to see Vegeta star more stories. He did think that Vegeta should have his own thing. And by the way, when he made that comment, guys, when he said that he thinks Vegeta should have his own story, that's where those stupid fucking Instagram pages started saying there's going to be a new Vegeta movie. They took what Torishima said as a suggestion that he wants to see and turned it into fake news, which is why I fucking, excuse my language, I fucking hate Facebook and Instagram Dragon Ball news pages because they always get shit wrong. They take the shit out of context. They make stuff up. Guess what, guys? In March, it's going to be a Goten Trunks movie. It's just completely made up. And it's so irritating because I see good people, good fans who are gullible and fall for it. And they shouldn't. And it's not their fault. So there you go. No more talk about leaks. Jordan, do you want to get to the footage now?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. So now we're going to actually break down what it is that Torishima said. Now, what he's specifically referring to here, guys, is yes, we're talking about Dr. Mashirito, bro. I made that clear earlier. Yes, that's exactly who we're talking about. Mashirito was based Mashirito was based on Torishima, and so was Demon King Piccolo. So we're going to go through here and we're going to discuss we're going to go through his opinion on this art piece that Toyotaro did and why Torishima was so critical of it. Now, before we actually hit play on this, I want to give you guys some context. This is from a podcast called the Koso Koso Podcast. And it's Torishima and Yuji Horii. And Yuji Horii is the creator and main story writer of Dragon Quest, my favorite video game series of all time, the greatest video game series of all time. Don't at me. And Toriyama was close to both those guys. So if you listen to Kosa Kosa podcast, yes, it is in Japanese. Sometimes, though, we'll get lucky and Vinixis will translate some of it for us. And they do talk a lot about Toriyama. At the table they record the podcast, there's little figures of Goku, there's manga. So if you speak Japanese, or if you want to have like an AI translator, which might make things easier, some people do that. Check out the Costa Costa podcast. You will find out a lot of cool tidbits from that podcast, including stuff about how Toriyama wanted to quit like 3 times, why he decided to change what's it called? The tone of the Majin Buu saga. All kinds of shit from the past fucking 40 years are discussed on that podcast. So, Jordan, do you have any thoughts on the podcast that you've heard so far?
Yeah, it would. I have watched it a little bit. It is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start. This is Torishima criticizing Toyotaro's art piece and giving his opinion about why it's not good. He does not think Toyotaro is on Toriyama's level, and I'm gonna be honest here. I do not dislike Toyotaro. I really don't. Sometimes I've been critical of him. Sometimes I haven't been. I mean, sometimes I've been critical. I like some of his work. I don't like some of his work. Bottom line, he's no Toriyama. And if you have doubts about that, Jordan and I covered all 42 volumes of the original manga done by Mr. Toriyama himself with his editors, including this guy right here who helped out a lot. And that is the purest of canon. That is the pure original story. So I say that because if you go back and you read the original manga, it's so amazing compared to Toyotaro's work. It's just Toriyama was very special.
Yeah, I think people hear that that Toyotaro is not Toriyama and they think of it as an insult. No,
it's not an
Toriyama
insult. Toriyama
was just like a god.
Special.
Like
yeah.
It's just a huge bar to live up to. Now, I don't know if anybody here has read any of Nakatsuru's manga work, but he has also tried to do manga. He and Koyama worked on a promotional manga together, a Cashman manga together. And it looks very, very similar to Toyotaro's work because it's not easy. It's not easy to be a mangaka. It's just not. So, Nakatsuru and Toyotaro have both tried to be on Toriyama's level in terms of manga. They're both great artists, but being a great artist and doing manga are two completely different things. It doesn't matter how great an artist that you are, doing manga is not the same thing as just being a great artist. And there have been plenty of artists who have tried to be on the level of Toriyama and have failed. So,
and ultimately, I don't even think Toyotaro is ever going to surpass Toriyama, but at the same time, him trying to honor the man, I think is good enough, and we have to give him grace for that. Let's go ahead and get started, guys. Me and Jordan are going to pause periodically and talk about what Torishima is saying in relation to the clip. Let's go.
これを X 出したら750万ビューになったんです。すごいね。これね、なずさんがね、この絵いまいちだね。
ちょっとね、ちょっと。
Just so you guys know, Nas is the woman talking. That's the co-host. Just so you guys have context on that.
鳥島さん、
はい
物は
Right
正
there.
確に言いましょう。
え
ね、
危ない危ない
危ないね。
物は正確に言いましょう。
な
あ、今
Hey, can you
清太郎
pause
先
this,
生の
Danny?
その
What's up? What's up? Jordan? Did we
Oh, I
lose
just wanted to
Jordan?
acknowledge this comment.
Which
So
one?
this guy
Which one?
says that I can accept the idea that Toyotaro isn't Toriyama.
This one?
In fact, you can't replace Toriyama. He was special, but I don't believe, Toyotaro does Toriyama justice. He doesn't try. He only does it his way. This is not true. Anybody who knows anything about the creative process for the Dragon Ball Super manga knows that Toyotaro sent in multiple drafts. Part of the reason that his drafts are so detailed for the manga is because he was that worried about whether or not Toriyama was going to approve it or not. Like he's a fanboy. To say that he doesn't try is to essentially deny the fact that he might be one of the biggest Toriyama fans of all time. So he definitely tries. It's just not an easy thing to accomplish. It's a very, very high bar. But I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and I want to say to teleported
point.
bread for 3 days. I agree with his comment up until the point where, like you say, he doesn't try. I think Toyotaro tries hard, but it's just, and he's also still learning too. I mean, for all we know, if Super continues for another 5 years, 10 years, manga wise, he might get up there in time. So we got 441 people. Make sure you leave a like if you're stopping by and spread the stream out. Let's continue.
コミックスの扉絵をの
そうだよね。
方を、
ああ
そちらですね。これが何か違和感を感じるんですけど、これ鳥島さん、この違和感っていうのはどこなんでしょうという質問を私からちょっと。
それで
So he's asking, she's basically saying that the piece that Toyotaro did doesn't feel right. And Torishima is going to explain why he is critical of that piece of art and how it goes through like the manga, you know, like how it fits in with the flow of the manga compared to Toriyama.
パッとね会場で見てこれってキャラがこうやってオールスターで揃ってんだけど目線がバラバラなのね。
This right here is something that I never thought of. This is this is basically like advanced high level art criticism here, okay? Because I never thought about this. I actually do like that piece of art Toyotaro did. It's not the best, but I do like it. I don't hate it. But right here, Torishima says that they're gathered like an all-star cast, but their eye lines are scattered. I do think the eyes on a couple characters, specifically Goku, does look a tiny bit weird, but I don't think it hurts the image. What do you think, Jordan? It's a bit of a nitpick.
I think it is a nitpick. I think that Torishima giving this criticism is no different than all the criticisms that Torishima gave Toriyama. Like, if you know anything about Torishima and Toriyama's relationship, Toriyama would draw covers and Torishima would get after him for them all the time, to the point that Toriyama stopped drawing vehicles on his Dragon Ball covers, because every time he would draw vehicles which had nothing to do with the story, Torishima would get after him. He'd be like, "Why are you drawing a motorcycle on the cover of a Dragon Ball story? That has nothing to do with, like, you're not communicating what the story is within the manga by just drawing Goku on a motorcycle." So he's basically just giving the same style criticisms that he's always given. Now, and I do understand what he's trying to say. This piece of art is more like an illustration than a manga piece, and that's his biggest criticism, is that it's not done in the manga style. Now, Toriyama also did this sometimes, and I'm sure Torishima got after him for it whenever he did it too. But that I do understand what his criticism. His criticism is that it doesn't look like manga in terms of a front cover. When you pick it up, it's like you're looking at an illustration that somebody drew as a fan of Dragon Ball. They did a great job, but it doesn't come off like a manga cover. It comes off like an illustration that a fan would draw out of appreciation for the product. Now, the only thing that I disagree with when it comes to Torishima's criticism is that a piece doesn't, without any intent, doesn't have substance. That was something that he had said about this piece. Now,
Was that
I
coming
think
up?
well, that's something that he said, not in this video, but in a text whenever
Prior,
he
okay.
criticized it in text on Twitter. And I
Right.
think he course corrects in this video because he said, like he just said, it's clearly to show off a an all-star cast. Toyotaro did say when he drew this piece that he drew it with the intent of basically showing the 5 strongest characters in the series. So he did draw it with some semblance of intent. It's just that I think what Torishima is trying to say is he should draw it with the intent of manga in mind, not necessarily with the intent of, whatever he's thinking at the time. He should be thinking about how it applies to manga. And if that's
Well,
what
like
he's
you
saying,
said-
that makes perfect sense.
But like you said, this is an illustration. This is not meant to be a manga cover. But I do want to address what Davis King 100 said. It looks more like a Marvel than a manga. He wrote manga, but I think he means manga. And I agree. I do think this art style here is way more reminiscent of an American superhero comic book team than of Dragon Ball. However, Toyotaro himself has admitted that he likes American comics. And here's the way I see it. If Toyotaro is going to be influenced by American comics more than Toriyama, so be it. If you can't beat Toriyama at being Toriyama, then the least you can do is do something different and bring something different to the table, which is why I don't fully disagree with or don't fully agree with Torishima. I think Torishima has good intentions. Yeah, he's coming off nitpicky and crotchety, but I don't think he's straight up like insulting the guy. Right here, official Woo Flare says, what if Dragon Ball turned into Marvel Comics, like different mangaka, different stories, fan at heart? So for me, content is content. I think while the content creators like myself and other YouTubers and artists, people in the fandom would love that, that's just not how Japanese manga works. The way they do it over there is one artist, one writer, or sometimes it's 2, and they write the entire story. So it's one person's true vision with some editors. Whereas if you read X-Men, if you read the Stan Lee era of X-Men, it's going to be different than the Chris Claremont version of X-Men, So I don't think Dragon Ball will ever become like that. However, if this franchise does continue another 30, 40, 50 years and Toyotaro gets old, somebody's going to have to replace him. And so, yes, in that sense, it will continue. We don't know if it will yet because we're thinking way far down the road, way far. But because Toyotaro was still pretty young. But the point I'm trying to make is like that it could. So what do you think about that, Jordan?
I think that if, the companies themselves work out a plan to do something like that, it could be lucrative. It could be fun. It could be good for the fans. And there is an opportunity to do it now that Toriyama isn't somebody that they can rely on for content. And they're also willing to make more content without Toriyama. So that does kind of create like, the opportunity for like what you're talking about, where it's like different mangaka doing different stories. And Toyotaro did say that if any fan who creates Dragon Ball stories has the balls to turn in a Dragon Ball story to Shueisha and try to get it published, that he encourages them to do so. So it does kind of seem like a new era of things like that is possible, but whether or not they ever actually do it is a completely different story. So
right. Yes. I know that it's the cover for a volume. What I'm saying is it's not drawn like that. And we're going to get to that here in just a moment. Bear with me. Let's continue the video.
だからどのキャラとも目が合わないね。でおまけにメインキャラが誰かがわからない。
Okay, I want to get well. Let me let him finish, then I'll get into it.
これ扉って漫画の扉って必ず意図がなきゃいけない。だからどこ見てんのって。これは主人公っていうかメインは誰って。
So I disagree with Torishima here respectfully, because here's why. Number one, I actually like that Toyotaro has 5 characters and they can all be main characters. So like that. You know what I mean? Like that
Well,
in and of itself.
if you go through and you read the manga, there is little sections of the manga for each character. Okay. And that's not a Toyotaro thing. That's something that Toriyama planned for all of this. He's the one that gave Gohan Beast his section of the story in Superhero. He's the one that gave Orange Piccolo his section of the story. Now, Toyotaro was responsible for Ultra Ego, but he worked with Toriyama for that. And then you've got Ultra Instinct and then Broly's new transformation, which they've been building up to for forever. And all of this stuff is contained within the manga, within the story, and they do focus on each individual character and their arc. So in that sense, this art is appropriate for essentially, wrapping up, summarizing what the manga in itself is talking about. And in that sense, I don't necessarily agree with what Torishima is saying here either, but I do kind of understand what he means in terms of not really knowing what the focus is if you're somebody who doesn't have any of that context, because that's how Torishima is thinking. A lot of people miss that. Torishima, he's thinking about a blank-minded reader who doesn't have any of this context and just at first glance walks by and decides based on the art that they're looking at whether or not they're interested in the product that they're going to buy. So he has a very, very different mindset when it comes to, judging the product overall. So I think that's also partially why he's saying this, is because as somebody who is a manga editor, he's probably constantly thinking about how new readers are also going to respond to this without any context at all. So,
and I want to add to what you just said by saying this. The reason why I disagree with him also is because Dragon Ball Super is a sequel to Dragon Ball. It's written by Toyotaro and put out by Shueisha with the belief and understanding that people who read Dragon Ball Super have already read the original 42. Unfortunately, some haven't. But the idea is, if you're reading Super, you already know who the main character is. You don't need to know that. So having 5 of the most important characters on screen, I don't think is a problem, because everyone knows it's Goku's story, but it's also an ensemble cast now. And Gohan had his own movie. So this right here.
Yeah, this is an old school mentality that he has.
Well, with respect to Torishima, this right here comes off like he's not, like he doesn't know what Dragon Ball has become now, and that he's kind of stuck in his old ways. With respect, I say that. Let me answer this chatter right here. He says, it doesn't make sense and you're wrong because mangaka die young all the time. Horrendous working conditions do that to you. Okay. You say mangaka die young all the time. What about the ones that didn't die young? See, people like to say things like, well, geekdom, Toyotaro's not, hold on. Toyotaro's is not gonna make it 50 more years. He's gonna die. Since when are you God? Since when do you know when this man's gonna die? How do you even know he has the same working conditions? Guess what? He doesn't. He puts out a monthly manga. So before you say something like, I'm wrong, you're literally saying that you think Toyotaro will die young, and you have absolutely zero reason to believe that, because he's not working under the same conditions that other mangaka are working in, and even those other mangaka aren't dead. So when you say that, like, you sound very like misinformed. Go ahead, Jordan.
I was just going to say, a lot of this is based on the fact that Torishima was an editor for the manga way back in the day for Toriyama within a very...
I'm saying he said it wasn't about me. I thought he was talking about us. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that, like, a lot of these criticisms that Torishima has, it's almost like he's talking to Toriyama again. That's kind of what he's thinking in the back of his mind. Like, he's still criticizing the manga as if he's criticizing Toriyama whenever Toriyama was an up-and-coming mangaka who was not a legend yet, not within the context of Dragon Ball. He was a legend in terms of Arale, but not in essentially, he's trying to help build a product that has already succeeded, and I think that that's kind of where Torishima is missing the birds for the trees, is that Dragon Ball Super is a continuation of Dragon Ball, and he's kind of missing that.
You're supposed to already know Dragon Ball.
he's judging it as though it's a separate product, and in some sense it is. I mean, Dragon Ball Super is a new thing for the new era, but I think a lot of his judgment is slightly skewed because he's thinking about this as a new product in a way that that's just not the case, you know.
Right, and I want to highlight here, he doesn't. This teleported bread doesn't like the new art, and that's fine. I'm not in all agreeing or disagreeing with you. I like it. I don't love it, but I do like it. I don't think it's as bad as some people say it is, but this piece of art, guys, is really polarizing. I've seen very, very smart Dragon Ball fans, not dumb ones from Instagram and Facebook. I mean, like ones that know their shit, saying good and bad things about this piece of art. So if you're one of those guys that likes it, great. If you don't like it, that's okay too. I don't think there's a wrong opinion here. Let's continue.
で、これはトヨタロウさんが描いたドラゴンボールスーパーのコミックスのカバーの絵なんだよね。
はい、その通りです。この24巻のコミックスのカバーになってます。
そうするとね、僕はその前段の話
All right, he's gonna get into some stuff here, so let's keep going.
していい？で、今回ジャンフェスの会場に行って一つの目的がトヨタロウさんにあるお願いをしに行った。
Okay, we should probably talk about this story, but yes, he did actually go to Jump Festa, and I want to tell everybody something about Torishima. He was a major player in Shueisha for decades. He's the guy that discovered Toriyama, gave him a job. But please be aware of this. He doesn't work there anymore. He's a retired editor. So I'm letting you know Victory Uchida is the current editor of Super, not Torishima. So please understand, ladies and gentlemen watching the stream, Torishima does not have any direct influence. People can listen to him because he's got credibility and clout being involved for so long, but he does not work for Shueisha anymore. So please know that he does not work for Shueisha anymore.
で、直接顔を見て会ってお願いをしようと思って、結果断られたんだけ
So
ど。
apparently he tried to find Toyotaro.
Oh.
Hold on, let me get to the part. I'm sorry, I went back on accident.
その理由
Okay, so he tried to find Toyotaro, and the scuttlebutt is that Toyotaro didn't want to talk to him. Right? Isn't that what was going around? That he
wanted to.
ducked
No,
him?
that's actually. It's not that he didn't want to talk to him. It's that Torishima wanted to ask him a favor, and Toyotaro politely turned him down. It wasn't this big confrontational thing that people think that it is. What ended up happening is Torishima was going to ask him a favor, and then Toyotaro was very, very upfront about the fact that he wanted to dedicate the rest of his time to drawing manga and that he didn't have time for anything else. That was the answer that he gave Torishima. And Torishima basically told him, if you're going to dedicate all of your time to drawing manga in the future, then you need to improve. That was basically what that was essentially the exchange, is that, you know, that's fine if you want to spend all of your time doing manga. It's not near as confrontational as people think it is. It's more so, you know, if you're going to continue, if that's what you're going to be dedicated to, just make sure you improve and do the best job that you can. And I would say that Torishima's favor, so to speak, probably had something to do with putting Toyotaro through some sort of trial to see whether or not he, you know, could improve under those conditions. I'm sure he probably wanted to do something to try and help Toyotaro improve as an artist. And Toyotaro basically just
right there.
Toyotaro basically just said, I don't have time. So,
well, I want to get to that in just a minute. Vinix is in the chat. One last thing. I disagree with you, man. You said Toyotaro doesn't deserve the heat. He's not really getting heat. It's a criticism from a guy who directly worked on Dragon Ball since before Toyotaro was even born.
He would criticize Toriyama the exact same way if Toriyama was here today.
That's right. He would, and he has. So it's like, I understand that you like Toyotaro's work, but once again, like I said at the beginning of the stream, you have to respect Torishima because he's been in the game for 50 years. You realize that Torishima is like a star maker. This man has a catalog of mangaka that he's made rich with Toriyama at the very top. So like, you have to respect him. Like you got to put a little respect on his name, you know? Let's continue real quick. Oh, one more thing, Jordan. when Toyotaro said that he's too busy drawing manga, is that a clue that the super manga is on its way back? Is that what he's meant? Because why would he? What's he going to be drawing besides super?
Well, the last thing that Toyotaro said whenever they had that big event in France is that he wanted to dedicate the rest of his life to drawing Dragon Ball, and that he had achieved that. So yeah, it's likely that he's going to do more Dragon Ball. I mean, that's what he wants to do. That's his life now. That's what he's dedicated his life to. So, it makes sense.
Let's keep
られ
going.
たんだけど、その理由がトヨタロさんがこれから漫画
There
を
it is.
時間をかけて集中的にこう書くんで、それに以外のものに時間取られたくないってことで、その説明を聞いたんだけど、そう彼がこれから漫画を書くってことに
Yes, sir.
He did a one-shot manga to have Torishima look over it at that same event that I'm speaking of, where he said that he was going to, dedicate his life to drawing Dragon Ball.
We're talking about that now.
Yeah. He did a one-shot manga about a samurai demon character thing. Very, very Japanese. Very, very, very Japanese. I actually ended up translating the entire thing and reading the story and figuring out what he was going to do with it just out of curiosity. It was essentially about Japanese oni and samurais and demons and stuff like that. And he did a one shot about that. And he has said recently that he would like to finish it, but it's a one shot. Now, fans tend to be resistant to that and complain about that, but the same fans who are resistant to that and complain about that also, in a lot of cases, complain about Toyotaro's art quality, his paneling, and stuff like that. Let me just tell you something. Part of the reason that Toriyama was so good was because he did so many one-shots, okay? In the manga industry, if you enter a manga contest, they make you do a one-shot. The reason they make you do a one-shot is because it proves that you have the skills and the ability to create a contained story that is entertaining within a single manga, a single product, one copy of a manga that somebody can buy out of a store. If you can make an entertaining, creative story that people enjoy contained within a one-shot, then you have potential and talent as a mangaka. So if Toyotaro can prove himself by doing that one-shot, and also improve as a storyteller and as an artist, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I also want to make it clear that Toriyama has done one-shots while also working on Dragon Ball. So even if he did...
And Dragon Quest at one point.
Yeah, even if he did the one-shot, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not working on Dragon Ball either, and people have this weird false equivalence that that's the case, and it's just not. But anyway... yes, he did say that he was going to do his own manga, but it is a one-shot manga. And if he does do it, I think it would be great for him. I think it would help him. I think it's a good experience for him to go through. It would improve him overall as a storyteller, as a mangaka, and everything. So there's nothing wrong with him wanting to do the one-shot. And again, it's a one-shot, so it wouldn't have that big of an impact on Dragon Ball. But anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and it's fine. I mean, it is what it is.
に
Continue.
対して、だったらこの扉絵はまずいだろうと思ったわけ。どういうことかっていうと、この扉絵はイラストレーター、漫画家
This
じゃ
is
ない
what
人
Jordan and
が
I
描
were
い
talking
て、
about earlier, is that it looks like it was drawn by an illustrator, not a manga artist. So Torishima agrees, but it's one of those things where, again, the point that this is a very nuanced conversation, because I understand what Torishima is saying, and I agree to a degree, but I don't think this is as bad as he says it is. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't feel as strongly about it as
It's criticism for the sake of criticism.
In some ways, but I do think that he should be listened to because he knows what he's talking about. I mean, he's got clout. The word
That's
clout.
True. I mean, again, he would say the same thing to Toriyama,
Yeah, the word clout. The word clout, I feel, has been totally fucked over by social media. Clout means actually having influence, right? And Torishima, even though he's no longer working for Shueisha or alongside Toriyama, does have a ton of actual clout. Because when you worked at Shueisha as an editor for decades and decades, when you're the guy, listen, he discovered Toriyama, motherfucker. Do you understand that none of us would know each other. Like this shit we wouldn't even be here right now. So I'm not saying that he's immune to criticism. I'm saying he's got a history of having good taste. How about that? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he's always right though. Let's keep going.
扉だね。どういうことかっていうと、トヨタロさんがドラゴンボールスーパー、鳥山さんが描いたキャラクターを借りて、漫画を描いてる、イラストを描いてるわけ。
はい。
そうすると、この中で誰が主人公で誰に思いがあるかっていう、そういう漫画の作り方にから来てないわけよ。
Something I want to talk about here is while I do understand what Torishima is saying, right? I don't think that he has full context for where the super manga is right now. No. Right now, the super manga left off with Goku and Gohan's little training, exercise and whatnot. There is no emotional way because we're not in the middle of an arc right now. We're literally in limbo right now. So, yes, Phoenix, that's what this is all about. So again, I know exactly what Torishima is trying to say, but I don't think this is the right time for that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it comes down to him having very little context, and also treating the manga as though it's like a standalone, almost new product when it's not. Now, I do think that there is a lot of things that Torishima has said that has suggested that he hasn't read Dragon Ball Super. Okay.
I don't think he has either.
So I do have a hard time taking some of his criticism seriously because he hasn't read the product. Like when he said that thing about making a Vegeta-centric story, Dragon Ball Super is arguably more of a Vegeta product than Z in some ways because Gohan was like a big focus in Z in comparison to Super. That's the reason they did the whole Gohan thing with the movie because they spent all of Dragon Ball Super focusing on Vegeta and Goku. And towards the end of the manga, right before it went on hiatus, Vegeta had a bigger role in the story than he's ever had because the rivalry between him and Black Frieza was being hyped up like majorly. Like there's literally like a scene in the Super manga where he's like looking up into the sky and he sees like a giant like form of like Black Frieza in the so they're clearly building up to something for Vegeta that's huge in the Dragon Ball Super manga. And I do think that if Torishima had that context, he might feel a little bit better about the product. But honestly, I think because of what I've read from Torishima's work in terms of like how he criticizes and looks at manga, a lot of this is just aesthetics. He does have, criticisms of the story and stuff like that I don't necessarily see because it does seem like he doesn't have context. But I think more than anything else, he's just concerned with the aesthetic of Dragon Ball Super. The criticisms that I've seen that I think are the most valid are the fact that, yes, this doesn't necessarily seem like art for manga. I can see that as a valid criticism. And also, whenever he criticized Toyotaro's paneling, I can also see that as a valid criticism, despite the fact that he did judge his paneling based on one page, which is very strange because most of the time you're supposed to judge paneling based on 2 pages, not a single page. I found that very, very strange as well. But I do think that there are legitimate criticisms that Torishima could levy against Toyotaro to help him improve. And that's part of the reason that this, despite the fact that he is making some, I guess you could say, silly criticisms and criticisms for the sake of it, I do think that Torishima does have the potential to motivate Toyotaro to acknowledge problems that he has and improve upon them due to the fact that he is.
Toyotaro has to listen to him, though.
Yes. That's why I said I think he has the potential to do so. Not necessarily that he will, but I do think he has the potential to do so. Because the biggest difference between Toriyama and Torishima is Toriyama was very, very kind-hearted. And what he would do is he would allow Toyotaro to send him drafts, and then he would correct them. And he would be like, he would essentially take baby steps into helping Toyotaro change his heart direction and his start and his style and stuff like that. He was not strict. He was not hateful towards Toyotaro or like overly critical towards Toyotaro. He would essentially just have him send drafts in and then correct him to the best of his ability and be like, you should probably do it this way. This is the better way of going about it and stuff like that. It was a very, very, it was constructive, and I do think that it helped Toyotaro in a lot of ways, but it wasn't confrontational. Toriyama very much treated Toyotaro like somebody who was very talented and that he believed in. And I don't think as a side effect of that Toyotaro is used to this sort of criticism from people like Torishima. And I don't think the fandom is used to having this sort of criticism levied towards Toyotaro either, which is part of the reason that all this backlash is happening, because, it is really kind of reflective of the fact that if we lived in an era where Toriyama was coming up, this is likely the same sort of reaction that we would get from the fandom if Torishima was criticizing Toriyama back then.
Yeah, but also we'd also get people shitting on some of Toriyama's ideas. If Dragon Ball Z was coming out now, bro, oh my God, Goku was an alien the whole time. That is so lazy.
Yeah.
How much you want to bet, bro? Like, that's just, we live in the era of complaining about everything. And I do want to go off on a sidebar about the importance of opinions and the difference between a respected, valuable opinion and a ignorant one. But we can save that for later. Let's continue this because we're not even halfway done and we still have a whole other part left. So, ready?
Yep, let's go.
Let's go.
どれもが鳥山さんが作った大切なキャラクターだから、オールスターでこれを
he just actually fucked up there. He said all these characters were created by Toriyama, and that's not necessarily true. Broly was created by Koyama first. Toriyama then took him and changed him for Dragon Ball Super Broly. But Broly himself is a Takao Koyama original character.
キャラの中で見せてあげたいっていうね。まあ違いがすると生け花で言うと、咲き誇ってる大輪の花を全部きれいに花瓶に入れたらもう生け花にならないわけ。何がメインでそれを引き立てるために他の花とか飾りがどうあるかっていうそういう構成をしなきゃいけない。で漫画家だと当然この巻の中身の絵は象徴的だとこの扉になるっていう描き方をする。
Okay, while I do see where he's coming from, Toriyama also had a bunch of cover arts that were all playful and goofy, and like Goku's on an airplane and Bulma's driving a World War II tank. So yes, I understand what he's saying, but even the original Dragon Ball manga had things that weren't like that.
Dimitri 4AA, he did also look at a double page spread too. You're right about that. Like he did also look at a double page spread and criticize it as well. You're right.
Yeah. All right.
そうするとメインは一人であるはずなの。でその一人を引き立てるように他のキャラがあるってね。ってことはキャラクターを自分で苦労して作った漫画家だからこの
This right here, what he's about to say. I want you guys to really, and I mean this, listen to what I'm saying, really read this carefully, what he's about to say. There's a content in the manga, and this single sheet exists as a representative cover. He's about to go into something that represents the Japanese people and their spirit. And we'll talk about it here in just a moment, but essentially what he's about to say is more of a philosophy than an actual opinion, but it gives you an eye-opening look at how Japan views mangakas versus how Americans view comic book authors and writers. It is different.
ってことはキャラクターを自分で苦労して作った漫画家だからこの漫画の中身がありその代表をするカバーとしてこの1枚があるって書き方になるわけ。とするとメインがいなきゃいけないわけだしそのメインが引き立つような形の
He keeps going back to this main character thing.
It's aesthetics. He's criticizing aesthetics.
But the issue is that for the superhero arc, which is the last arc that we got, Gohan is the main character, not Goku. But for the rest of the super arc, it's Goku. So this goes back to what you said earlier. This guy probably hasn't read Super at all.
No, he hasn't, very clearly, because
and that's bad because you should
Orange Piccolo is a major focus. Gohan Beast is a major focus. Ultra Instinct and Vegeta and Ultra Ego Vegeta aren't as much the focus, but they are there. They exist. Broly's form is a huge focus in this volume, particularly. So it is representative of the content of the manga. That's what's strange about what he's saying, is that it is actually representative of the content of the manga.
And it gives the clue about what's next, because with these forms now, these guys are super powerful. So whoever the next villain is, or whatever the next arc is, they may all have to work together. Toyotaro might be giving us a clue right here about what's coming, you know?
Yeah.
目線とかアピールの仕方をこの扉でやんなきゃいけない。
Hold on. See, okay, brother, I don't have a crystal ball. All right. Listen, I'll get in my time machine later and I'll let you know, bro. You're asking questions that have no answer yet.
I will say, you are kind of short-sighted in the sense that this industry is thinking about children growing up watching these series new as they're coming out new. They're not thinking about you. So yes, Goku and Vegeta can definitely be the protagonist for a next 20. It's protagonist, team, whatever, for the next 20 years, and nobody bat an eye, because there's going to be a whole new army of new fans come up who are just now getting into Dragon Ball. That's happened within mine and Danny's time on YouTube. A lot of the people who have started to watch us and have started getting Dragon Ball are not the same people that watched Dragon Ball or were around back then, even whenever Super was running. It's almost been a decade. So their mind is, they're thinking new generation, new eyes. They're not thinking about the old heads at all.
I also think that as far as Goku and Vegeta being main characters for another 20 years, it's going to come down to what stories and what situations they get involved in. That's something I've been talking about from the very beginning. They have to come up with creative ways of using these characters, because the Dragon Ball story has so many arcs within it, and if you include Super, that Vegeta and Goku have done almost everything. Well, not almost everything, but a lot of things. And so the more Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball runs, the more people that are writing are going to have to get more creative on figuring out like where we're going to go.
Yeah.
でこれはやっぱり今言ったことは豊太郎さんは多分自分がこの後苦労して漫画を描き始めると分かると思う。なぜならキャラクターを作るってのは漫画にとっていかに大事ってほぼ 80% 占めるからね。
Now again, I don't agree with him saying the main character should be 80% of the
Well, he didn't realize prior to this, just to give some context here, because I found this out after the fact, he had no idea that Toriyama and Toyotaro had the working relationship that they had. He had absolutely no idea that Toyotaro would draw 45 pages, turn it into Toriyama. Toriyama would correct him, give him guidance. Torishima did not know any of this prior to this. He just recently found out that Toyotaro and Toriyama had this. So you also have to keep that context in mind when you're reading what he's saying here. He's thinking about Toyotaro as like a new mangaka who doesn't have that much experience, because in his mind, it's almost like Toriyama is responsible for everything that we've gotten in Dragon Ball Super here recently, which maybe isn't, entirely his fault, because Toriyama's name is plastered all over everything. So it may not entirely be his fault. But if you listen to how he's speaking, he is speaking about Toyotaro as though he's new and inexperienced. And that's a lot of that is due to the fact that he did not have any context in terms of Toriyama and Toyotaro's relationship prior to this. So
yeah, and that's not good, because that means his opinion is ignorant. It's an ignorant opinion. I do want to say we do have some super chats, but I'll get to them shortly. So if you're leaving super chats, stand by. We'll get to them here shortly.
ここでも何回も言ってるけど、ドラゴンボールで悟空ってキャラクターを立てるのにどれだけ苦労したか。それを立てた後はもうどれだけドラゴンボールが走ったか。そこにドラゴンボールの転換点があるわけだから。で、豊太郎さん、これからその鳥山さんがやった苦労を時間をかけて味わってやらなきゃいけない。
But Toyotaro's never gonna ever understand the struggle Toriyama went through, because Toyotaro has a monthly manga and Toriyama has a weekly manga, and that's very, very, very different.
And he also had Toriyama take him under his wing and teach him. That's
like Toriyama didn't have Toriyama.
Yeah, that's like saying if Toriyama had Tezuka, Like
Yeah.
it's just not the same
Or
situation.
go Nagai.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's continue.
そうすると今描いたこの絵にはならないはず。
うん
漫画家トヨタロが誕生したらね。
うん
で今大変申し訳ないけど漫画を描いてると言っても漫画みたいなものを描いてるんであって漫画描いてないね。
それは
Interesting.
キャラクター自分で作ってないから。
But I mean, but here's the issue. See, this to me is stupid. I'm just going to say it. I respect Torishima, but it's stupid. He hasn't created the characters himself. He's being paid and hired by Shueisha to write Dragon Ball. He is continuing where Toriyama left off. If someday Shueisha tells Toyotaro, listen, do a time skip to 200 years in the future and don't mention Goku, Vegeta, or anything else, but set it in the same world, then it's like, okay, I see your point. Toyotaro is hired to continue the story of Dragon Ball. Therefore, he has to use the legacy cast. It's no different than the Star Wars sequels, which they botched it, or the Creed movies having Rocky in it. Like, if you're going to do a modern continuation, like Cobra Kai is a great one. You can't do Cobra Kai without Daniel LaRusso. You can't do Dragon Ball without Goku unless Shueisha or whoever, Akio, says, let's go way into the future or to a different universe. But even then, the alternate universe had a lot of Toriyama art in them.
I do think that Toriyama also did a great job leaving Toyotaro with the characters at a point in their story to where they are established to a degree Toyotaro and to the fans. Like, we know who Goku and Vegeta are. We know where their character arcs are. Like, he essentially left Toyotaro with the gift of these characters already established in a way to where it's very easy to understand, very easy to digest, and
fans already have their favorites.
Yeah, it's very easy to use these characters in a correct manner after, what Toriyama left Toyotaro with. So that's my biggest problem with this criticism, is that it kind of ignores the fact that Toriyama did go out of his way to leave Toyotaro with Orange Piccolo, Gohan Beast, Ultra Ego Vegeta, Ultra Instinct Goku, and Super Saiyan Broly. He went out of his way to leave all of those characters to him and sort of give him an understanding and teach him about those characters. So that's kind of my criticism of this comment.
All right, this gray board dude. Listen, man. Look, you must have gotten here late. I'm not going to be mean to you. But you saying, who is this guy? Why is the opinion on Toriyama so important? Toriyama chose Toyotaro to be a successor. This guy is the man who discovered Akira Toriyama, and if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't fucking be here, and neither would I. That's who this guy is. Why is the opinion important? Because he's the one guy who worked alongside Akira Toriyama for 40 fucking years. So yes, his opinion is important. Thirdly, you wrote Toriyama chose Toyotaro to be successor. That is false information. That's wrong. Toyotaro was hired by Shueisha to do Super as a promotional manga. And later, why am I getting a phone call? Dude.
Telemarketers, bro.
Hold on. Hey, I can't talk, bro. I'm streaming right now live. I literally have to hang up in like a second. Send me a text later. Yeah, I sorry, y'all. That was a friend of mine, and I mean, you heard me. Anyways, that's who this guy is, bro. Don't start with the fucking, well, who is this guy? Like, bro, like, guys, you have to be here on time. I wasn't mean. Was I mean to him, Jordan?
No, that's not mean.
These people who are here now, right? A lot of them were here when I was mean. A lot of them were not. You better. No, listen. It's all right. I'm not mad at you, right? The point I'm trying to make is the old me, like me from 2 years ago, would have been talking shit about you right now and just fucking, fucking roasting you. Like, I'd be roasting you, not in a mean way, but I would be roasting. But nowadays, that's not.
Yeah, he's very passionate. Yeah, I think OS 6401 hit it on the head. I think you're just very passionate about how you speak about things.
I am, but like, I wanted him to know that if this guy Torishima was a nobody, we wouldn't even be doing the stream. Like, his opinion does hold weight, which is why we're doing the stream. This makes me laugh. I have a landline because it's my office number. He's calling my office number right now. He should have texted me first, but that's okay. No big deal. Let's continue.
だからここでも言ってるけど、そのジャンプグループで山ほど載っているヒット漫画のバリエーションは全部トヨタさんと一緒。一番大事な苦労してないから漫画じゃないの。あれ漫画。
It's here he's saying that Dragon Ball Super is not a manga, it's something like manga. I don't
think he's read Super, so it's really hard to take that comment seriously.
Well, not just that. I don't think he understands. Like this comes off very condescending. Toyotaro is not the one that chose Super to be monthly. Shueisha did for V Jump. Dragon Ball Super is not in Weekly Shonen Jump like Dragon Ball was, the original 42. It's in V Jump. This is not something Toyotaro can control. That is all Shueisha's choice. So
I do think he's also speaking partially from the standpoint of his book, because if you've read his book about how to create manga, he has very, very strict rules about how you're supposed to go about making manga. And if you break one of those rules even slightly, he's likely to be like, this isn't manga. So yes, he is being overly harsh, but I think that's because he feels validated in the sense that he did create a book published by Shueisha, guiding you how to create manga correctly. And he probably just feels that if you aren't following the rules that he set out for manga, that it's not manga, which is very arrogant, but that is likely where he's coming from. And the arrogance comes from the fact that he did help Toriyama create Dragon Ball. So he sort of has the right to be like, I kind of know what I'm talking about. He's professional. He's been doing it for a long time. But I do think that that's where he's coming from. I think he's basically thinking about the rules that he and Toriyama established in terms of what you're supposed to do to make manga. So
the reality is, I'm about to say something right now, and it's not a disrespect nor a praise of Toyotaro. I'm about to say something factual. What I'm about to say is factual. This cannot be disputed or debated. Dragon Ball Super is not Dragon Ball. So Torishima's right. It's not Dragon Ball. It's a sequel written by Toyotaro with Toriyama's help of Dragon Ball, but it's not the same as what Dragon Ball was. It's not weekly. It's not just Toriyama and his editors. This is not a criticism or a review of the manga. It's just the fact that the way that the Super manga is produced is not the same as OG Dragon Ball, and that's something Torishima needs to learn, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Dragon Ball Super is also a combat fighting manga in a way that the old Dragon Ball was not. Shueisha actually went out of their way to have Toyotaro make Dragon Ball Super a battle manga specifically, meaning every single chapter is going to be much more combat oriented than the original Dragon Ball. It's very, very rare that you're going to have like story dumps and stuff like that in Dragon Ball Super, because they specifically requested to Toyotaro that it be a battle manga, which is different than what Toriyama did. Toriyama had full reign over what type of manga Dragon Ball Super was, or Dragon Ball in itself was. So it's just a completely different situation. But the way that Toyotaro formats the manga, the way that the manga is written, the way that it's released, everything is just entirely different. It's an entirely different product in that sense. So
I've never read One Piece, so I cannot make a logical opinion. I can't make a good opinion there. So I respect you for admitting this. However, again, I respect you for admitting it, but you're not really like, you and I are very different people when it comes to this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be mean to the guy. Genuinely, I'm not. But it's like people who say like I'm a DBZ fan, not a Dragon Ball fan. Like, it's just weird to me. It's very weird. I sort of get it, right? But I don't know.
But you're
man.
basically just saying you're a fan of the Dragon Ball Z anime,
of the Z style, I guess. Yeah.
You're basically just saying I'm a casual almost. I mean, which
that is it. Yeah.
That is basically kind of what you're saying. You know,
But you know what? But you want to know something? You might be a casual, but if you hang around these circles long enough, including my channel and people who I feature on my channel, you will change your mind about that at some point. It's just gonna happen.
なんだりとかっていうことですよね。キ
そう
ャラクターがもういる
Yeah,
状
so
態
so so Torishima considers Super a spin-off, which I can kind of see that. I can kind of sort of see that.
そうでね、豊太郎さんやっぱりね、漫画家としてこんな一本立ちするんなら一回鳥山さんを消してほしいんだよね。
パリでもおっしゃってましたね。
鳥山明を捨てなきゃダメ。
It's again, this is a weird opinion because Toyotaro is writing Dragon Ball.
Yeah, it's
The
Dragon
only way he'll be able to throw away Toriyama is if he makes his own manga from scratch with his own characters. But you want to know a big secret? Because Toyotaro was influenced by Toriyama and worked with Toriyama for like almost 10 years, he's always going to have a piece of Toriyama with him.
Yep.
Always. Because that influence is there. You know what I'm saying? It's there. I'm going to get some water. My throat's
Let's
parched.
go ahead. I'll talk for a minute. That's fine.
Yeah, I'll be back in like less than a minute. My throat.
I think again, to give the most I guess you could say to give the interpretation that's the most generous towards Torishima, I do think that he's saying that that's all Toyotaro's ever had, was working with Toriyama and being the mangaka for Dragon Ball Super. But honestly, I think that his perception is skewed in the sense that Toyotaro does not have any intentions of being a standalone mangaka. He has dedicated his entire life to working with Toriyama to continue Dragon Ball and to essentially be an extension of Akira Toriyama. He has no intentions of being Akira Toriyama in terms of, Akira Toriyama creating his own path as a mangaka and getting big by doing what he wants and doing his own thing and everything coming from him originally, because Akira Toriyama created Dr. Slump, Cashman, Dragon Ball. He created all kinds of original, amazing stories. And I don't think that is Toyotaro's intention. I think that he intended to learn as much about Dragon Ball as humanly possible so he can continue it to the best of his abilities. So I think that's kind of where where Torishima isn't, he's not getting the full context, is that he doesn't understand that Toyotaro's intention is to continue Toriyama's work, not to be Toriyama, or someone like Toriyama.
Yes. I heard most of what you said, but not everything. Let's wrap up part one.
自分の中の鳥山明を捨てて否定するとかじゃないと自分の漫画を描けない。そうじゃなきゃ漫画を描く意味がない。表現するってそういうことだから。
でもその豊太郎さんのどこか別のインタビューに載ってたのが、でも豊太郎さんはドラゴンボールが描きたくてっていうことなんですよね。今
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. This right here is her telling Torishima that this is what Toyotaro wanted to do. Toyotaro got to live out a dream that a very small number of people got to live out, and that's working alongside Akira Toriyama drawing Dragon Ball. The only other person who's done this is Naho Oishi, and she did 1 volume. Toyotaro got 9 years with Akira Toriyama. Nobody else in history has been blessed like Toyotaro has, to actually be able to work alongside Toriyama, because nobody else has for that long, with the exception of maybe Yuji Horii with Dragon Quest. Other than that, there you go. So you don't have to apologize, bro. It's not a big deal. I'm just letting you know that he does try.
Modern Dragon Ball.
You got to remember,
Shueisha
is a lot of times in charge of a lot of that. What were you going to say about Modern Dragon Ball?
I was just going to say Modern Dragon Ball in general would always be very different, even if Toriyama was in charge. Jocko is very, very definitive of that. And so is Dragon Ball Minus. A lot of people give Toyotaro flack for the change in direction in Modern Dragon Ball, when really Toriyama would have changed the direction of Dragon Ball either way. I guess that's a lot of the reason that people don't like works like Jocko and Dragon Ball Minus, is because it is very, very different to the original Dragon Ball. And what I find very interesting and this is just something that I've noticed personally, is that a lot of people have a appreciation for Toyotaro's old art. They actually, a lot of people actually say he was a better artist during the AF era and during a lot of his fan art era than he is now, because it does look a lot more like the old Buu Saga Dragon Ball Z style. But what I want you to understand, I want you to remember this, is that the reason that Toyotaro's art style has changed so much to be round and almost more friendly looking is because Toriyama constantly corrected him using the same style that he drew Jocko the Galactic Patrolman in, which is nothing like what the original Dragon Ball looked like. It's completely different. So if I had to say that Toyotaro's art style was anything, I would say it's a weird mix of like when Nakatsuru was trying to do manga and trying to course correct into modern Toriyama. And that's the reason his art looks the way it does. And that's the reason that Dragon Ball as a product feels entirely different than it used to, is because it was always intended to be aesthetically different than it used to be. Toriyama, if Toriyama was young Toriyama and he was in charge of Dragon Ball Super and drawing it, it would still look different. It still wouldn't feel exactly the same as the original Dragon Ball Z manga and Dragon Ball. It wouldn't feel exactly the same. It would still have that weird retro sci-fi aesthetic that Dragon Ball Super leans into. So I just want to make that clear, that a lot of the change that you see in modern Dragon Ball is a side effect of Toyotaro working in combination with Toriyama and being corrected by him, and not necessarily, Toyotaro alone. Because a lot of people look at like Dragon Ball Super's more round, friendly looking aesthetic, and they say that that's like Toyotaro's style, and it's actually not. Toyotaro's style is actually much more rigid, much more like Buu Saga. What you're seeing is Toyotaro's style after being corrected to look more like Jocko the Galactic Patrolman by Toriyama. So I just wanted to make that clear.
ドラゴン
Fantastic.
ボールが描きたくてっていうことなんですよね。もともとですよ。今は。
だったらね、それをじゃあ100% じゃあ許したとして、鳥山さんのドラゴンボールの何に惹かれて何をいいと思っているのかっていうのがあって、それを自分の漫画の中でどう消化するかってことをやんなきゃいけないわけ。でもそれってね、もっと難しいと思うよ。
どうしてですか?
At least he acknowledges that it's not easy to replicate Toriyama. He said that there, and that's, I mean, that's it. Like you gotta give Toyotaro a little bit of grace when it comes to this. He's not my favorite. I don't think he's that good of a storyteller, but you got to give him some grace here. Keep going.
だって肯定をするけど否定したくなきゃいけないってことだ。それをいいと思いながらやっぱり同じものだとコピーになるわけだから違うもの書かなきゃいけないわけだ。
All right. So part 2, I'm gonna put on here in just a minute. What do you think?
I do think that Torishima could benefit a lot from gathering more context about Toyotaro and Dragon Ball Super as a whole, but I don't completely disagree with him in terms of some of his criticisms and some of the things that he said about Toyotaro in terms of like how he can improve and things that he could do to make the product better. I do think that there are things that Toyotaro can do to improve and make the product better, and I bet he would say the same thing. I bet if you were talking to Toyotaro, he would say the same thing. I have room to grow. So anybody who gets offended over Torishima saying such a thing doesn't understand like what manga is. The entire point is to better yourself constantly and get better at the art. And criticism like this can help sometimes. Sometimes criticism just happens for the sake of criticism. But I do think that, hopefully this whole debacle does end in the sense that whatever criticisms that Torishima made that are valid do in some sense help Toyotaro improve. That's the most optimistic way that I can look at this, is that Toyotaro will see some of these things that Torishima is saying, and he will take what should be taken seriously and what shouldn't not. Because I do think that Toyotaro does have this sort of pure spirit in the sense that he genuinely wants to continue and capture the essence of Dragon Ball and do the best he can with it as a product in the future. And I do think that that's kind of where this like divide is coming from between Torishima and Toyotaro, is that Torishima is thinking about Toyotaro as like a new mangaka who's not necessarily Dragon Ball oriented, and Toyotaro is basically trying to communicate to him, no, I am just an extension of Toriyama, and I just want to continue to do Dragon Ball, and I just want to continue to do my best to replicate Dragon Ball, and that's what he wants to do. And I think that there's a divide there. I think Torishima doesn't completely understand that. I do think that his advice is valid in the sense that I do think that if Toyotaro listened, he could improve. But I do think that there's like a bit of context that Torishima doesn't have, and a lot of these criticisms come from that lack of context. So,
yes, I'm going to start up part 2. And this is the one where I think he talks about the American fans, which I'm tickled to play because I have a feeling that we're gonna agree on a lot. Okay, so we're gonna now, Jordan and I, break down part 2, which is what we have here. This is an exclusive because Venixis had to take his down because he was asked to. There are super chats waiting. Those of you who have submitted super chats, I will get to them very, very shortly. So please be patient. There's a specific reason as to why I want to play a little bit of this first, and that's because some of the stuff the super chats are talking about is discussed here in part 2. So let's go ahead and rock and roll here. This is part 2 of the interview, exclusive. It was not put on social media from Venixis. So here we go. He was asked to take it down.
で実はこの鳥島さんの指差しのこのドラゴンボールスーパーのコミックス24巻の表紙の原画を指さしているのに対して海外の方がいやいや鳥島お前間違ってるよなと、これ鳥山先生が書いた扉表紙を見ると目線が合ってないものたくさんあるじゃないかって言ってこう例を出してくださった。
Let me say something real quick. The fact that we live in a world, I want you guys, Jordan,
this is wild.
Yeah. Okay. I want you guys to sit back for a minute. All right. We live in a world now, ladies and gentlemen, where we're able to, by the power of social media, communicate, influence, and speak to people that are instrumental in creating this franchise. And if you want me to be realistic about Dragon Ball, right? Toriyama might be number 1 because he created the entire thing, but Torishima might actually be number 2. You can take Koyama also, the anime showrunner, Kozo Morishita. There's a lot of people, right? And also that's a guy you can talk to as well. The fact that they are addressing comments from Twitter, and we live in a world where like you can do that. Granted, there were assholes being disrespectful, and the Dragon Ball fandom continues to embarrass itself when they do that. But the fact that you can still even speak to this show, dude, I fucking tagged this man Torishima and told him that he should look into hiring Griffin. And Griffin said privately he wanted to kiss my cock. I told him I didn't want to do that. Okay, that didn't happen, but he was very happy. Did you see that, by the way, that I tagged Griffin, your boy?
Yeah, I told him that. I thought that was very nice of you.
I told Torishima, hire this guy instead. Griffin was like, what? So, yeah, bro, the fact that I could DM right now, I can DM if I wanted to Masaki Sato, who did the Bardock special. The fact that No, let me tell you how fucked up my life is, bro. I hung out with the voice of Vegeta 8 years ago, and he got fucking drunk with me. I was drinking Coke Zero, but he was taking back fucking alcohol, and we were playing pool with Chris Sabat and Brian Drummond. And the fact that, and this is not me bragging, I'm talking about the power of the internet, the power of social media, and how the world is. Can you imagine going back to like when I was, let's say, 15 years old? Dragon Ball Z was on Cartoon Network, right? It was running, right? If somebody told me one day you're going to be hosting a convention, you'll be asking them questions. One day you'll be interviewing them. That's insane, dude. That's insane. And I'm not bragging about myself. I'm not the only one. There's content creators who have been invited out to Sonic movies, Star Wars. Like, we live in a fucking crazy world where
if you would have told me when I was
know.
a kid, if you would have told me when I was a kid that the creator of Broly, Koyama, was going to read my manga and follow me because of it, I would have never believed you. Like,
He said he wanted to have
never
sex
would
with you also, right? He said he wanted to have sex with you, and then he also said
I will not disclose that. I'm just saying.
Right.
I'm just saying. If you would have told me that I would have had Koyama follow me, like, and read my manga and appreciate my work, I never would have believed you. Speaking of which, I want to do shameless plug.
Go for it.
You can read my manga, Keiko Daimon, on the Dragon Ball Multiverse website. They picked us up and started publishing our work. There are 2 pages released every Friday and Saturday on the Dragon Ball Multiverse website. There's a story on there called Keiko Daimon. It's a continuation of Cashman by Akira Toriyama. If you want to go read it, there's a new page posted every Friday and every Saturday. So I just wanted to plug that. That's actually the manga that I'm going to end up giving a copy of it to Koyama this March. So if y'all want to check that out, go check it out.
Yeah, I did appreciate this comment. I want to respond to this one real quick. How starstruck were you hanging out with him? I actually was not starstruck. He doesn't get me starstruck, even though I was close to getting starstruck, right? However, listen to what I'm about to say. If I ever meet Nozawa, bro, that's like my grandma. You know what I mean? Like, I might actually cry. I may actually cry if I meet Nozawa, bro. That's a little bit above. It's like if I ever met Toriyama. The problem is that Toriyama never left the house. So, okay, hold on. This
I'm
guy
going to send
said,
Danny a link to the comic because
wait, Jordan, you can just
some
paste it right
people are
there.
requesting.
You can't put it right there in the comment thing on it won't let you?
No, I'm not logged into.
Oh, then do me
the
a favor.
streaming thing.
Can you paste it in the private chat? Where's the private chat? Do we even have one? Private chat. See,
I
how
can
this is
send it to you
private
on
chat?
Discord.
All right, that's fine. I don't see anything though. Oh, it says you're typing. Okay. Anyways, my point is, I wasn't starstruck. No big deal. And again, y'all, if your super chats are going to be answered shortly, I want to continue this interview real quick. And Jordan, I don't see anything, dude.
I'm getting to you right now.
All right, let's keep
並
going.
べて。
は
はいい。
こちらですね。
これ向かって右側はこれキャッチフレーズ大賞って言って昔読者からそれぞれの漫画のキャッチフレーズを募集してその最優秀賞のキャッチフレーズに合わせて漫画家が書いてでそれをポスターにして読者にプレゼントするって企画を何年もやってたのね。
右側のやつが。
でこれはもう右側見てもらえば分かることはこれはもう悟空がメイン。
He's right. Goku's right in the middle, and he's the main. But if you look at Toyotaro's work, Goku is also he's not in the middle, but he's in the front still. So I don't think that I do think it's a tiny bit nitpicky when it comes to that. You know? Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, I heard you. I totally agree with you.
All right, let me I went ahead and I put the link in the chat room. So actually let me hold on. What I'm gonna do is let me do that one more time, guys. I'm gonna actually see if I can make it a pinned. What do I put? Jordan's manga. Is that fine? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Jordan's manga. Hold on, let me put that there, and then give me just 1 second. Okay, replace pin. Okay, so the message should be pinned. Let's continue.
で他のキャラもメインキャラいるけど目線が全部ぴったり合ってるわけ。こっちに見る方向に。
はい。
で見事な一枚絵なの。
いやもう最高ですね。
左側は目線がバラバラだって言ってもこれ意味が違う。これは見てこれコラージュだから。
もう
一緒のところに立っているって絵じゃないわけ。
なるほど。
いろんなシーンをコラージュしてでも悟空が中心だよっていうことだから。
I don't think he's being overly defensive. I think he's just being nitpicky. What do you think he's being defensive? Because he's trying to defend himself against the internet on X, but I don't think that's the case here. Jordan, can you hear me? You're frozen. Oh,
yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, there you
Yeah, I can
are.
hear you.
Okay. Did you hear what I said?
I heard you say, "Can I hear you?" I didn't hear the part before that.
Yeah, something happened where you were frozen. What I was gonna say was,
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say, do you think Torishima is being defensive here? Jordan, can you hear me?
I think Torishima's being fair. Yeah, I don't think that these criticisms. Is my internet?
Jordan, I see you, but it's like you don't hear me or something.
No, you're just breaking up. Did you ask if Torishima was being fair?
I said, is he being defensive? Hello? Can you guys still see me? What's going on with Jordan? Jordan, your internet's messing up, bro. Okay, something happened to Jordan. Let's continue until he comes back. All right, he's gonna reset his internet, so we'll continue and then he'll come back.
左側の絵と右側の絵では意図が違う。で、その辺のところはね、でものすごいなんだろうな。失
Torishima, bro, he's yeah.
礼ついてのこと言っていい？
See, he starts by saying, "Can I say something rude?" You know that's a setup, bro. You know that's a setup. Okay, Jordan's back. Hang on. Are you back, bro?
Yeah, StreamYard gave me a message saying I needed to refresh the page to use their new settings or some weird shit like that.
I did not get that on mine.
Yeah, that's weird. Anyway, I'm back.
I was just asking if you think Torishima is being defensive.
No, I understand exactly what he's saying. He's saying that this is not the same context. No, I understand exactly what he's saying. He's saying that the one on the left is a collage. It's not meant to be like all the characters together. And he also saying that the same criticism doesn't apply to the image on the right. And in some sense it doesn't, because the Eilons they do line up better in the right image. But I will say it does seem very, very similar to what Toyotaro tried to do with the cover art. And it does make what Torishima said about the art seem like more like a nitpick. It does do that. So
we're about to get to my favorite part of the interview, bro, where he buries the anime only people. Here we go.
海外の人はドラゴンボールアニメしか見てないんじゃない？
まあアニメの方が多いですよね。
でね、ドラゴンボールについてちゃんと僕が語っていることを本当に理解して反論したいとか議論したいんなら、コミックス42巻を10回読み込んでから意見してほしい。
He did bury him.
No. We're running that back. Running that back. I want y'all to really pay attention to what he just said, because Torishima Sensei, Torishima may actually be my long lost father, bro. I want him to be my father. What he just said, bro, is literally my entire career. Let's run it back.
ドラゴンボールについてちゃんと僕が語っていることを本当に理解して反論したいとか議論したいんなら、コミックス42巻を10回読み込んでから意見してほしい。
10 times thoroughly before giving your opinion. There was a guy today talking about the dub, these fucking dub defenders. Listen, I've watched Dragon Ball Z in 3 different fucking languages multiple times. If your experience watching Dragon Ball Z is on Toonami 25 fucking years ago, you don't own the series, you've never read the manga, you don't know shit about how it's made, you don't know shit about the companies that make it, you don't know shit about the Japanese version, you are not going to fucking be on my level. That's not an insult, and that's not ego. That is not ego. This applies to a lot of people. You can't talk to Herms. You can't talk to Lance. You can't talk to Jordan. You can't talk to Derek. You can't talk to most of the Konzenshu people. You can't talk to Team 4-Star on an intellectual level. If your idea of Dragon Ball Z is hope of the universe, dog, you just can't talk about it because you've been exposed to a version of Dragon Ball that's not only wrong, but also you haven't even seen the shit in 25 years. Yet I got motherfuckers who are over here trying to debate me on shit they don't even know about.
Yep. Daily,
now, and this is what I've been saying about fucking Torishima. Look, we have a right to disagree with Torishima, but the man has experience. I want to talk real quick about the word opinion. The most annoying thing that I see on social media, and this is not a Dragon Ball problem, this is a snowflakes on the internet problem. I hate when somebody says something stupid that makes no sense or is objectively incorrect and then goes, it's just my opinion, bro. No. This idea that everyone's opinions are the same is bullshit. You understand what I'm saying? It's bullshit. You can't say, well, I'm gonna have a right to have my own opinion. Not if it comes from a place of ignorance. Let me give you an example that's not about Dragon Ball. If you're gonna learn how to dunk a basketball, are you gonna ask LeBron James or are you gonna ask my motherfucking fat ass? You're going to ask LeBron James. Because why the fuck would you ask me if I'm not fucking LeBron James? If you want to learn how to hit a fucking home run, are you going to ask Babe Ruth or are you going to ask fucking Hulk Hogan? You're going to ask Babe Ruth. People, guys, this is a message to the whole world. All opinions are not equal. They're just not. And if you think that your opinion, and I don't mean you guys in the chat or people watching, I mean people in general. If a human being thinks that their opinion is as valuable from an ignorant perspective than somebody who has studied the subject, that's fucking ego. That's fucking ego. So let me wrap up the point real quick. Let me wrap it up. If your exposure to Dragon Ball is that you saw Dragon Ball Z 20 years ago when you were a fucking snot-nosed kid eating your boogers, you're not going to be able to have the same weight as somebody who has dedicated their life to studying this. You just aren't. And the minute you think that you do, it's your ego. I keep hearing the word ego for the past 10 years about me. No, that's fucking ego. Because when I put together my fucking videos and when I come on here and I talk about this shit, dude, I'm talking about it from a complete love of Dragon Ball because I do love this shit. But I'm also talking about somebody who's seen the shit in 3 fucking languages, every dub in existence. And it's like, it's not an ego thing. It's more like, look, you're not gonna, what you're gonna say is clouded by nostalgia and ignorance. Your opinion is not gonna have the same weight as somebody like Mr. Fusion or somebody like Scott from Team 4-Star. It's just not. Has nothing to do with me. If I want to ask somebody about World War II, right? Am I gonna ask Sean Schemmel or am I gonna ask a history teacher? If Sean Schemmel thinks he knows more than the history teacher about World War II, he's going to have to fucking prove it. And if he says, well, geekdom, I haven't read World War II in 25 years, who do you think I'm going to go to? Bottom line, dude, y'all got to fucking, and when I say y'all, I do not mean y'all in the chat. I mean human beings. Opinions are not equal. They're just not. And the minute you think they all are, that's your ego talking. Let's continue.
ドラゴンボールのアニメは鳥山さんが書いたドラゴンボールを100とすると再現率 60% から 70% で中鶴君みたいに上手い人が全部書かれればそうはいかないんで やっぱり鳥山さん
He
元
puts
々
over Nakasura. I love that.
近い絵で動かしてるから。で動いてるから見れるんであって、止めたら見れるもんじゃないよ。
そこですか。
だからそれでね、アニメを持って、アニメの止めを持って鳥山さんの絵だっていうのはもうちゃんちゃらおかしい。
I definitely agree with that. That's
Bro,
facts.
this man is preaching, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy. All right. Let me break this down. He says, taking a pause frame of the anime and saying this is Toriyama-san's art is ridiculous. Akira Toriyama, do you guys know how many episodes of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z Akira Toriyama wrote? Jordan, do you know? Do you know how many pieces of art Toriyama animated? Other people do it. He just does the manga. But I keep hearing all the time that he does that's why lately, Jordan, I've been saying that it should be Toriyama and Koyama being credited, because I think Koyama does not get the credit he deserves for making Dragon Ball Z what it is. You know?
I can see that, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think he deserves more credit. Toriyama's still the tippy top, bro. Toriyama is still at the top when it comes to the creation of this universe, because the manga is the canon. You want me to spoil my fucking canon video? I'll do it right now. The canon video that I'm going to put out eventually, the canon is the original 42 volumes of the manga that Jordan and I broke down the Mangalorean. That's it. That's the canon. So everything outside of that, anime, video games, movies, it's an adaptation, and it's done by different people. Maeda, Nakatsuru, Toyotaro. You know these guys. We've talked about these guys, So the point I'm trying to make is Dragon Ball is a team effort done by a lot of people, not just Toriyama.
鳥山さんの絵だっていうのはもうちゃんちゃらおかしい。失礼極まりない。で、ちゃんと漫画を読んで、ちゃんとアングルとか含めて、自分の頭の中に鳥山明アングル、デッサン、ストーリー、頭の中に入れてからもの。
He's like the old me right here, the shit he's saying, bro.
やっぱあれですかね、どうしても海外だとアニメ先行。
This is true. Okay, this is true. And I would say this applies to about 90% of us, because I got into Dragon Ball because of the anime. Most of you guys did. Jordan, did you saw the anime first, right?
Yeah.
Okay. My alarm is going off. Let me turn it off. I'll be right back.
I did get to see a Chinese knockoff copy of the manga, maybe in my library. I think my dad owned it, or it was in the maybe there's in the library, or my dad owned it. I know my dad had copies, like knockoff weird, like cheap copies of Dragon Ball. But I remember seeing some like Chinese copies of Dragon Ball when I was a kid, some like knockoffs, but I didn't read it or anything. I just I definitely was introduced to Dragon Ball through animated content, for sure.
I'm back. I love you. Get a sex change, become a woman so I can marry you. Now let's get to the super chats. We've got a few here that I've been holding on to. Gaming Hub UK. Torishima saying Western fans to read all 42 volumes 10 times over before farming any opinions was hilarious. We just got to that part, so I couldn't play the super chat earlier. But yes, it's pretty damn funny. Next one from official Woo Flair. Torishima is like an equivalent to Jon Favreau. I'm not sure if that's maybe. I don't know. Who's that one Spanish guy that works with the MCU? Jordan, he's a producer. Not Spanish. Avi Arad, is that his name? Let me look. Hold on. Avengers 2012. Because he's on all the credits for every Marvel movie as a producer. Kevin Feige is the main producer. I think it is Avi Arad. Anyways, that's what I would say he is. He says it's like a multi-protagonist role now, which I can see the problems, but I also see the benefits of it It's how the stories will evolve. He's talking about Super with
was a
Goku
cover
and
art,
Gohan. Yeah, and that he's right. And then thank you so much, Phoenix. And then Dark Cloud Uchiha says a mean look at the end at the ending Gohan versus Goku. It was a send off.
Cool. I did enjoy that as well. I did enjoy
but-
that fight between Goku and Gohan.
Right, but they've still got more story to tell. So I don't know. I mean, it was a good ending for that arc, but there should be more coming at whatever that is. Takeshi Nazuma says, I just need to co-host one day. There's so many people repeating the same wrong info. I correct people when they double down. I need a get right stream. Well, I don't know you, bro. So what I recommend you do is why don't you just start a YouTube channel and just instead of co-hosting, just make your own channel and then on your channel talk your shit, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Check out Jordan's channel. He has his own thing too. Everybody's got their own channel, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back to it this year too.
Yeah, well, hopefully in a couple of weeks when the event happens. Lord White says only saw anime. You missed Goku using Hakai for Super. Yes, correct. Unless if no, I'm not gonna go down that road again. All right, official Woo Flare says new online era turned their brains into mush. Well, TikTok brains really gonna fuck people over. And then there it is, bro. If see he knows. Super Saiyan 4 MUI, you know. If wait a minute, you're true SSJ Havoc, then you have a new name. Why? Did you get booted off of YouTube, bro? Let's continue.
で言ってもアニメをで作品をドラゴンボールを好きになる方が多いと。やっぱりでも日本の方はやっぱり漫画文化も浸透してるし、漫画もアニメも同じぐらいやっぱり皆さん、まあ今アニメ
Hold on. That's another thing I want to talk about, y'all. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, how many fucking times have I brought this up to you guys? I don't do it out of I do it out of love so you can understand what's going on here. She's 100% right. In Japan, manga is read by grown-ass adults. Here in America, for a long time, comic books were only read by kids. Not anymore. But in Japan, it's always been the case where people of all different ages read manga. And manga is
Huge.
Manga is so much bigger in Japan than it is here. And there are people, and I know because I talked to one of them. I talked to one of them about 3 years ago here on YouTube. There are people, guys, that have never watched a Dragon Ball anime or Z. They've only read the manga. I talked to a guy who's older than me who saw the OG Dragon Ball manga and the OG Dragon Ball anime and just kept reading the manga. And you don't see those anywhere else but Japan. There are manga purists that only read the manga.
Here's
like
the big difference.
It's kind of like those Harry Potter fans that only read the books and don't want to watch the movies because they're, chopped up. It's the same idea.
Me and Griffin were just talking about this because, as you know, he went to Japan and he studied with a professional mangaka who was employed by Shueisha, and he told me that when you go to Japan, Akira Toriyama's spirit has influenced that entire country. Okay. I would argue that he's changed the entire world, but he made it very clear to me that when you get there, you can feel Toriyama's spirit in the air. He had a huge impact on that entire country. Okay. He is everywhere in that country. Okay. And as a side effect of the difference between how people appreciate manga and anime, there are obscure manga characters that Toriyama created in Japan that everybody knows about. Everybody, like Cashman, for example. A lot of people don't know who Cashman is in the West. Everybody in Japan knows who Cashman is. He's a very popular character. Almost all of these like weird little side characters that Toriyama created in manga form, everybody knows who they are in Japan because manga is that popular as a medium in Japan. Okay, and that's one of the biggest differences.
I will give you a Dragon Ball equivalent. When Resurrection F came out, Jocko was in that movie. I went to go see that movie dubbed in a movie theater in America, and people had no fucking clue who the fuck that was. No fucking, who is that guy? Who is that guy? But in Japan, because of how big manga is and because of how big of a deal it was for Toriyama to come out of retirement after being retired for almost a full decade. He comes, no, I think it was almost 2 decades. I'm sorry, almost 2 decades. Akira Toriyama comes out of retirement. Everyone read Jocko. They went to go see Resurrection F, and there's Jocko. But people outside of Japan who don't read manga, and that manga was available here in America, y'all.
Yeah,
it wasn't
Jocko
like we
was
didn't have
huge.
it in English, but people just don't read manga. Casual Dragon Ball fans do not read manga. Hold on.
And a
I
lot
gotta
of
answer this.
okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, and a lot of Western fans' complaints about Dragon Ball is a side effect of that. It's a side effect of the fact that they don't have all of the context of in terms of
And it's
like
not even their fault. It's a cultural
it's not their
thing.
fault completely, but like there's all kinds of information and context that they simply just don't have access to because they're not willing to be dedicated enough to get into the manga aspect of it, which is just way more popular in Japan. So.
And this question, a lot of people did not read Jocko because manga is not promoted. You realize that there's people out there, I like to call them neurotypical people. They're not autistic like the rest of us here in this Dragon Ball fandom. They don't like to read, bro. People, you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people who don't like reading, and so they'll never read manga. Even comic books they don't like. I want to answer a question, though, because I've been drooling. When I saw this question, bro, I started to drool. He says, Chaos Dragoon says, I want to know how DBZ became so celebrated in Mexico. You want to know why Dragon Ball is more popular in Mexico? Because unlike America, the dub was actually fucking accurate and didn't change everything. Therefore, the characters were themselves. They were better than the bullshit that the dub created, and they were put on prime time. Maybe if Dragon Ball Z in America was put on full prime time with a good English dub, maybe it would be even bigger. So whenever I see some dumb fuck say, oh, Dragon Ball's big because the dub is great and Bruce Faulconer, no, it's big in spite of the dub and Bruce Faulconer. And people seem to want to argue this. And it's like, dude, I have numbers to prove it, and you don't. Get fucked. Anyways.
And I prefer the actual intended intentions for the characters and for the story way over how it was dumbed down when it was brought to the West.
You damn well better. You wouldn't be here otherwise.
Exactly. So, it is just objectively better, in my opinion, in every way. Like, it's just, I don't know. I can understand why people, have a hard time letting go of their preconceived notions about Dragon Ball, because that is a form of identity death. It is a form of like letting go of who you were and something that you cared about. But if you do that with Dragon Ball, you will not regret it, because the actual product is so much better than the watered down version that we got. Like, period.
Right. And that's the thing. Every time I say that, some asshole has to fight me on it. I have to make him look stupid every time. It's just annoying. I'm not trying to ruin your childhood. I'm trying to get you to watch the real shit. Okay. Dead Dark says, I just joined. I hoped you blazed up for the stream. I did not, but I'm having a good time. And then Official Wolfer says, all fans should read Toriyama's manga theater. Yes. I agree with that. Because then you'll learn a lot more about what do you call it? About the non-Dragon Ball stuff Toriyama did, the one-shots and things like that. So, yeah.
The link to the manga on Dragon Ball Multiverse has every language almost. You just have to go through and click on the top left part of the website and change the language to English. It has every single language on there on Dragon Ball Multiverse's website.
Every single language, even
almost
Aramaic?
Every single language.
No, they have big ones.
They have a lot of people translating it to a lot of different languages. So you can easily find the English version on the Multiverse website. It actually is posted in English.
All the main languages.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. English, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, French, German, you know, the ones that Dutch.
漫画もアニメも同じぐらいやっぱり皆さん、まあ、今アニメの方が多いみたいですけど、まあ、そこの価値観はどうしてもすり合っていかないんですかね、今後。
違っていかないしね、ね、違い方すると、
Uh
大
oh.
変申し訳ないけど、ある種の漫画を出てくる。単純明快でアニメも分かりやすいものが出てくるわけ。例えば、
Wait a minute. Hold on. What did he just say? He said the simple and clean ones.
Yeah, those are the ones that are going to blow up in Japan or in the United States because they're easy to understand and you don't have to have the cultural context that you would need to completely understand a product like Dragon Ball, which I think is kind of what he's alluding to, which I think is very interesting because he said something kind of contradictory to this in the past, but I thoroughly enjoy that he is acknowledging that yes, Dragon Ball is not as simple a product to understand as you would think it is, and that it is a Japanese product, and that you do need the cultural context to completely understand the product. I'm very, very happy that he's acknowledging that. Like I am.
No, you missed. No, you missed. You totally missed what I was getting at with that.
Oh, what were you getting at?
He said, but in Japan, manga culture permeated. People enjoy both manga and anime. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm an idiot. My bad. She said, certain types of manga, the simple and clean ones, are the easy to understand. You're giving me dun, 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 too many things lately. You're all I need. Oh, you smiled at me and said, don't get me wrong, I love you, but does that mean I have to meet your father? When we are older, you'll understand what I meant when I said, no, I don't think life is quite that simple. When you walk away, you don't hear me say, please, oh baby, don't go. Simple and clean is the way that you're making me feel tonight. It's hard to let it go. I thought that'd be the first thing you fucking.
Damn, that's kind of like a
25 years, bro.
That's your rendition of that is like it's like some Sinatra shit in comparison to the actual song, but I like it though.
I appreciate it, bro. Anyways, bro, I fucking love. I love that song, bro. I love that song. It's a good song. No, I did not blaze up. Hold on. Ralphie Mars says, regardless of DB being watered down, it's still huge in America. Of course, no argument there. So the dub versus sub debate is pretty much nonsense to be having and stressing over. I agree. I agree. And I'm not even the one that starts it. I'm trying to get people to watch it in Japanese so that they get the real version of the story. It's not, and I've said it a gazillion times, it's not about fucking with your nostalgia, and it's not about trying to get you to hate the dub, even though everybody does when they see it subbed. It's about getting the real story. That's all. Even if people watch the sub once and go back to the dub, that's okay, because at least you saw the dub and at least you saw the real story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Thank you for the compliment, Brando. All right, we're almost done. Here we go.
鳥山さんの漫画とか、ジャンプの漫画の低学年向けのものって出てくるわけ。翼とか、ワンピースになるとそういうものが出てきやすい。ところが、ある程度難しいもの、例えば、テーマ的なものとか結構上向けの年齢の漫画。
I'm not sure if what he's talking about here.
ワールドワイドに出てかない。
I understand what he. I understand what he.
No, I was going to say,
exactly
is he right though? Because I'm not sure if he's right about what he's saying. You know what I mean?
I do think that manga can become popular despite having a beneath the surface more complicated narrative or cultural context that you need to fully understand the story. I think Dragon Ball in itself is an example of that, because it was in fact watered down by the dub and by the way that Western people view it and the way it was interpreted to them. But I do also understand what he means in the sense that there are very likely a lot of manga in Japan that they don't even bother trying to publish in the West because of the cultural context,
Right.
and because of how nationalist it is in comparison to other works. Now, I don't think Dragon Ball is that, because Dragon Ball does have a lot of nods at Western culture. And that's like one of the biggest difference between Dragon Ball and a lot of these other manga, is it does have kind of a Western tinge to it, despite the fact that it is intended to be sold and consumed by a Japanese audience. So there is that. But I think I do understand what he's trying to say. He's basically trying to say that there are some products that are made in the Japanese manga industry that just aren't necessarily going to blow up in the Western hemisphere because they just don't have the context for it to blow up. You have to actually do some actual research to learn what manga is in Japan, what it means to the Japanese people. And, a lot of people just aren't willing to do that for entertainment, Well,
also in Dragon Ball does have some of that. That's why I'm here. That's why we have stuff like the Mangalorean, for that reason. But I want to address, I don't know anything about Hokuto no Ken, but I think he might be wrong about Slam Dunk, because Slam Dunk did go worldwide, because Slam Dunk, for those who don't know, is a basketball anime, and basketball is a worldwide sport. Everyone in the world plays basketball. It's not like American football or like cricket that's only niche in their own little countries. Basketball is everywhere. So something like Slam Dunk can easily work in any country.
Yeah.
Same thing with
my
Hajime
son
no
is a fan of
Ippo.
Slam
Hajime no
Dunk.
Ippo with the boxing can also work.
For the record, my son is a fan of Slam Dunk. He loves it. So
One of the movies came out a couple of years ago and it did really well in theaters.
Yeah. Of course, he just loves everything basketball. So,
That's good. Can we get Crunchyroll to redub it, or do we have AI steal voices? You want Crunchyroll to redub it, bro? Who's gonna pay for it? You? You know you gotta pay these actors, right? And the directors and shit. Anyways, let's continue. We're almost
どう
done.
や出てかないじゃん。でそれって漫画を読むある種の読解力とか漫画を読む力がないとわからない漫画ってあるじゃない。
He's basically saying people are dumb, which I like.
yeah, I need a screenshot of him saying that. I'm gonna.
You want me to go
post that
back?
on- Yeah, get a screenshot for me. I'm gonna post that.
Isn't
online.
that it right there? Wouldn't that
Yeah,
be
I
it right
need
there?
that. I need that. Grab that for me, please.
I'm okay. Wait, I don't know if I can, because my shit is like,
Well, grab it for me when you can.
yeah, that I can always send you the video if you want.
Yeah,
like,
that would
the
be
full
great.
interview.
That would be great. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Let me see.
That
Okay.
right there. I'm about to glaze Torishima for saying that. That's I really appreciate him saying
Media
that.
literacy.
I have been saying that for years, for years, and I have so many people tell me, "Oh, no, it's so simple. You don't need any reading comprehension. You can just everything's surface level." And it's just like, no, that's just not. That is not the case at all.
Nope. Also, I just sent you on Discord the drive link. Just copy it to
Thank you.
a browser. Yeah, that's the whole thing. I can't screenshot it because on my screen the play button is covering the part, like the bottom couple of sentences, so it's not gonna look right.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
ナンさんが好きなジョジョなんかそうです。
All right.
ルールバトルってやつですね。
でそれはやっぱりわからないと思うんだよね。でね、日本の漫画を読んでる人たちってやっぱりいろんなもん見てて分かって
It's like he's saying manga readers are
とは言っ
smarter
ても
than
最
regular
近ね
people.
ネットの漫画のレベルの低いパターン的なものしか見てない人は海外の人と一緒だよね。漫画の間とか絵の面白さってのは分かんない。
そうそこはね。
I will say this about manga and comic books. It's not for everyone. I enjoy reading comics from time to time. I've got a whole collection back there because I love really well done stories. But I enjoy manga. Again, I have manga books back there like crazy. I have Dragon Ball like in 5 different releases, 4 or 5. But I'm always gonna be an anime kid. Not that I don't like manga, but I like the experience of movies and TV shows where you get the voices, you get the audio, you get the music. Like, you know what I mean? You get the fully moving animation. Like, I am more of a fan of animation than I am of what. And the reason why I'm saying animation and not anime is because I'm talking about across the board. Like, for example, I can read a Batman story and enjoy it, but I also like watching Batman the animated series probably more. So look at this one, bro. Do you think they will ever do a DB Dama anime?
He probably means a continuation of the Dama anime.
Well, I know if not, then I was gonna roast him for that, but yeah. One last thing here. I had to go back to the super chats here because I think I missed a couple.
And,
okay, we got
the guy who asked that question. You're welcome, by the way.
You saved his ass.
Yeah.
RPT says, I lived in Japan for 3 years, a decade ago. I recommend folks watch anime in Japanese because there are some cultural context and dialogue that's lost in translation when you don't. Well, not just that. I mean, I agree with you, but I think for some people, they need to look into it deeper. Again, not everyone is like this. And that's what I noticed, that I should be making my Dragon Ball YouTube channel videos tailored to this. A lot of people don't want to do the research. A lot of people are like semi-casual or on their way to being hardcore fans, and I make them hardcore fans, and so do other people in our fandom. But like a lot of them don't even know where to get these resources. Like when you're saying to get cultural context, a lot of them don't know. Example, the tingly back. Nobody fucking knew about the tingly back. I had to make the video explaining what the hell that came from. Or another example, more recent one, is the idea behind Ultra Instinct. That's one that I had to explain. And also the ending of GT. How many people, and this is not, I'm not bragging, folks. I'm just using this as an example. How many people actually understood that ending of GT before I made my video on it? And how it's like,
no one.
Right. Yeah. And it's the ascension. And Derek helped me out with that video. It's the ascension, Goku ascending into godhood. I'm doing it because I want to help people understand. So I'm doing what RPT wants to do. The problem is a lot of people don't even know where to look. See what I'm saying? That's why I don't blame the fans. I used to get pissed off at people for being ignorant, but nowadays I'm a bit more open-minded because I don't blame the fans for not knowing if they don't even know where to look. You know what I mean?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Like they don't. Some don't even know where the hell to look. You know.
And not everybody is equally as skilled at picking up on context either. We've talked about that quite a bit.
We did actually, privately and
海外
publicly.
の方もすごいたくさんコメントとかいただいて、どうしてもこう日本のファンの読者と海外のファン読者とこうどうしてもこうねこう折り合わないっていうか、まあいろんな意見があっていいんですけど、そこの部分は漫画っていう話がやっぱりできないのは正直なとこなんですよね。
She's saying that you can't really discuss manga with people who have not watched it, and not read it, and who don't understand it, and that there's truth to that as well. Yep. This goes back to what I said earlier about when I said you're not going to be able to talk to me. It's not that. Let me explain, because people tend to take that the wrong way. If I say, okay, you're a dubby, you're not going to be able to talk to me, that does not mean that we cannot have a conversation. We can't have a conversation, but you're not going to understand certain aspects of Dragon Ball. And if you're one of those guys that's like a dub fan or somebody who's casual, and you understand that you're casual and you sort of show humility in learning about what Dragon Ball really is, I'm going to love you, because that's what people need to do, is show humility. My issue is with the people who are not humble. My issue is the people whose egos are bigger than their assholes, who think that because they saw Dragon Ball Z on Toonami 25 years ago, they can tell me about Dragon Ball Z. And I'm going to look at them and I'm going to say, bro, you're bringing a knife you're bringing a knife and I have a machine gun. Like, stop that. Right. You know what I mean? And this is just in reference to what I said earlier about the different types of fans, you know? So let's continue. And that's okay. There's levels to this. There's nothing wrong with that. Just what I'm saying is, if you're at this level, don't try to convince me that you're at this level, because real recognizes real, right? And if I'm talking to a Dragon Ball fan and I can tell instantly where their levels are at, And if I talk to a Dragon Ball fan and they're fucking talking about Allied to Good Nightmare to You and how much they love it, I already know where I stand with them. Okay, I see what they are. It's not a diss. It's just when you're really into something, real recognizes real. Same thing with movies, sports. Yeah, anything that you're like a subject matter expert on, you're gonna know.
でもそれがこの前子供言ったけど、堀井さんのドラクエのメッセージだって、
Dragon Quest,
翻
of
訳者が
course.
伝わりにくいし、
日本語独特だからね。
であとはやっぱり
ニュアンスがね。
ある種のこうストーリーの中のエピソードだって伝わりやすいエピソードとそうじゃないものってあるよね。
だからこれを見て今回その左側の、鳥島さんが今コラージュとおっしゃったものを見て、いやいやいやって、全然違うじゃん鳥島が言ってることはってやっぱり海外の方はそうなっちゃう
で今言った僕の説明でわからないとすれば、はっきり言って漫画力が低い。で
I can't stop smiling. I mean, dude, like, this is not ego, dude. The best, look, listen, the best thing that you can do when you talk, okay, hold on. He's calling people stupid. Not necessarily
ignorant
stupid.
is the better word.
Ignorant is the word. Ignorant. Right. Ignorant. The issue, there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. There is something wrong with being willfully ignorant. I made a video about this years ago. What I'm trying to tell you is that you can be ignorant because I'm ignorant of a lot of things, but willfully ignorant is really obnoxious.
Yep.
And it's also annoying, and you don't really get respect when you're willfully
アニ
ignorant.
メーションのもとには原作漫画があって、その原作漫画は一人の人間がどれだけ苦労してキャラクターメイクしてるかってことの認識がない。出来上がったものし
He's
か見て
putting
な
over
くて、
Toriyama now.
動いてるものしか見てなくて、ってことでしょ。分かってないんです
He's really putting over Toriyama.
だから本当に失礼で言うけど、ドラゴンボールを少年ジャンプのオンタイムの連載読んでた人が一番幸せな人たち。もう15ページの漫画を1週間ずっとワクワクして待ってる人たち、こんなね。
You know what, bro? He's got a good point. Can you imagine what it would have been like to have
Yeah, we
lived
talked
in-
about that a lot during the
the
Manga-Lorian.
Manga-Lorian? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like living in Japan when this was coming out, like, and I talked about it recently from an anime perspective. Like, can you imagine reading 100? Listen to what I'm about to say, y'all. Raditz did not get introduced until Dragon Ball Manga chapter 195, I believe. You realize that the first 194 Dragon Ball manga chapters, we're supposed to think that Goku was a creature from Earth, and then suddenly, bam, he's an alien. Can you imagine for 3-4 years, right? 3 or 4 years, right? Reading this manga, and then one day you find out that the main character has this fucking secret backstory. Like, can you imagine how wild it must have been for those people?
Yeah.
It's just
素
crazy.
敵な時間の過ごし方なんです。それ以外の人たちは遠くなればなるほど申し訳ないけど、取れたての野菜とか果物を畑で食べる人と冷凍食品で食べる人、冷凍を解凍して食べる人の違いぐらいあるよね。
I believe that's it. Let me see real quick. Hold on. Someone eating fresh vegetables and fruits. Someone eating frozen food has been defrosted.
野菜と
I
か
mean,
果
that
物
might be. That is a weird
I would say
analogy.
that's a bit of hyperbole, but it's I understand what he's trying to say.
Hold on. Oh, okay. He was saying, what does that have to do with Toyo manga art covers? I think we're past that part now. I think now they're talking
We've
about
been way past that. The whole reason we transitioned to like dub versus sub is because Torishima started talking about how, you know, Western fans don't have all the context that they need to completely enjoy the product the way that the people of Japan do. And that is, you know, with the sub and dub thing, that also applies. But what's interesting is Torishima is saying that it's the manga that you need to focus on. Sub and dub be damned. It's the manga that you need to read. It's the manga that you need to read to really understand and enjoy the product to its fullest extent. And also, you need to read it with the cultural context in mind, and that's the reason that we've gotten to this section of the video.
And that's literally the Mongolian. You don't even have to do it. Just watch the fucking streams. Watch the motherfucking streams that Jordan and I did, and then you'll get it. I know it sounds like I'm promoting them, right? But I am. That's true. That's how you're gonna. True. Yeah, you don't have to do the research. Listen, we did it for you. How about that? Right? Okay.
Yep, we did it for you.
Matthew Clark, with respect, you have spammed this question like 6 or 7 times, brother. And we have a rule here where you're not supposed to spam the same question over and over again. But I'm going to give you a break. Please do not spam. That is one of the rules that you agreed to when you first came in the chat. Don't spam the same question. The question you're asking is about Dragon Ball Super Anime to be canon with the Dragon Ball Z anime. This is not relevant to this discussion. However, what I'm going to say is there is no canon. So, and that's what I always say. Now, are there connections? Yes, but there's
what's your definition of canon? If your definition of canon is Toriyama being involved in any sense with the story or anything at all,
well, everything's canon.
Then everything's canon. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there are different levels of like somebody of Toriyama being involved in others, and I would say that Super it has more in Toriyama involvement than like GT, but like what do you define as canon? Like that's the important thing to you. Like you say personally, you don't think it's canon, but what's the basis for that?
Right
now, personally, and me and Danny tend to agree on this. I think that anything that was produced in Bird Studio by Akira Toriyama with his pen would be considered that's the canon. That's like everything that Toriyama himself created without somebody else's hand in the cookie jar having some sort of influence directly when it comes to him drawing the manga. Not that he didn't have editors, but if it was printed and made in Bird Studio, to me, that's kind of what defines Akira Toriyama's serialized work in terms of like the Dragon Ball product. That to me. Now everything else, as Danny said, is an extension of that. It's extra, right? It's other people getting involved and making more stuff. So it really just depends on what your definition or basis or idea.
Everyone's canon is different. That's why there is no canon, because everyone's is different. That's the point. There is no canon. When I say that, what I'm really trying to say, you have to read between the lines. There is no canon actually means that everyone has their own canon. Trenton, okay, I need to address this because this is a little bit of an ignorant thing you're saying. He says Torishima is the ultimate manga glazer purist more so than anyone else. No, Torishima was an editor at Jump magazine in Shueisha for like 50 years. This is not glazing, and this is not him being a purist. His job was literally to discover talent and work with them on manga. That doesn't make you a glazer, dude. A glazer is somebody who's a fan.
If anything, he's basically saying that his approach to manga is really the only correct approach. He's not glazing other manga. He was just giving other manga shit, saying that it was manga-like and not actually manga. What he's actually saying is that if you're not doing manga the way that he believes that you should do it, it's not really manga. He's not even really glazing manga. He's basically saying that his format is the format that everybody should be using if they want to be considered respectable mangaka. That's actually what he's saying.
Yeah, and again, it's not fair to call him a glazer because he actually worked in the industry. Glazer is more so somebody who's like, a glazer is somebody like, for example, the people who are like, I can't watch DBZ without Bruce Faulconer. Like that is glazing more than this guy who actually can back up his words. So Matthew says that his basis for Super and Z not being canon is because the original Bardock specials canon to Z and not to Super. And that's because in Broly, we get the retold Bardock special. And see, that right there is a wonderful example of why I say that there is no canon, because he's right. The Bardock special that came out in 1990, October of 1990, that is the one that was the original story of Bardock. The one that we saw in Dragon Ball Minus was 2013, and we saw it in Broly in 2018. So because of that, now it's like, well, shit. Which Bardock
Well, I
is
do
the
want to.
canon
I do
one?
want to clarify that the
It
second
gets
version of
complicated.
Bardock. Yeah, I do want to clarify the first version of Bardock is a character that Toriyama said himself that he did not feel that he could ever create a character like that. So
Well,
it
he
wasn't
said the
his.
story was very dark. It was.
Yeah, and he did not create that Bardock. He did pay homage to that version of Bardock, and he loved that version of Bardock
in his manga.
And he did put that version of Bardock in his manga, but he did not create it, and therefore he probably just wanted to put his vision a bit into the character, which there's nothing wrong with. You can like or dislike that whichever version of Bardock you want. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, this idea that like, you know, Bardock was clearly canon or that the new Bardock is clearly canon, it really doesn't mean anything. At the end of the day, Toriyama is going to do what he wants with his story, despite what Toei does. He ignores their lore and does whatever he wants with his story. Despite that, he does not care if Toei expands on a lore and creates their own little version of it and makes new things that are added to the Dragon Ball story. He ignores all of that and does exactly what he wants with his story. So it doesn't, it's kind of irrelevant whether or not Bardock was in the anime or whether or not he was in the manga or all of this stuff, because at the end of the day, it's Toriyama's story. He's going to do what he wants with it. None of that has any bearing on whether or not any of those things are actually canon, other than the fact that Toriyama is the one who gets to determine what happens in his, keyword, his version of the story. So if his version of the story is your quote unquote canon, then the new Bardock would be canon. It really just comes down to what is your basis? What is the standard that you're using to determine what's canon and what's not? You know, like
also
that's what's important when you're trying to determine.
Now, I'm gonna say something that might fuck with you a little bit. It might not you, Jordan, but it might fuck with Matthew. And it might fuck with the people in the chat right now before we get out of here. But before I say that, I did put up a poll. Please vote in the poll. The poll is, whom do you agree with, Torishima, Toyotaro? Pick one. I'm curious about your thoughts. And we'll take a look here in just a few minutes. Please make sure you vote and leave a like. So here's where I'm going to fuck with you, Matthew, and everybody else, right? Why is it that the major contradictions to things that happen in Dragon Ball, there's contradictions within the original manga too, but have you noticed that the projects that Toriyama has worked on seem to be more tied into the manga? Well, what does that mean? I'll give you an example. Why is it that in Dragon Ball Super Broly, Frieza in his first form has pink skin, which is the skin he has in the Kanzenban? Why is it that in the prologue to Dragon Ball Super Superhero that Kubota does, that all of those things that he animated are from the manga version of the events, not the anime with the manga's colors? Or what? I hope you know where I'm getting at with this. Another example is if we watch Dragon Ball Daima and we see in Dragon Ball Daima that there's flashbacks in the first episode to the Buu arc. Why is it that those flashbacks have been reanimated? No footage from Z or Kai, that is reanimated to look like the original manga. Now I'm gonna fuck with you. The reality is that in many ways, now again, I'm not talking about canon here, but in many ways, modern Dragon Ball, not the super anime, but the movies and Daima, seem to be tied into the manga more than the anime. And that's where things get tricky. Because, again, there is no canon. It's going to get tricky. And a lot of folks don't notice that.
Influence. You're removing Toei's influence on the story and the things that they added onto the story. And that's how you can kind of see that it's like being told from Toriyama's perspective in comparison to Toei's. Because if it's being told from Toriyama's perspective, they're always going to focus more on the manga than the anime and vice versa. So
one more thing about this too, y'all. and this goes back to what I said a couple nights ago. Jordan, I don't think you were here for this. If you look at Akira Toriyama's poster for Battle of Gods, right? Why is it that the Supreme Kai and Kibito are unfused and Kid Trunks has blue hair? So Toriyama already had that in place in 2013 when Battle of Gods came out.
Yep.
That means that in Toriyama's canon, Supreme Kai and Kibito already unfused, and it happened in Daima. See,
Gets weird.
It's very weird. That's what I'm saying. These canon debates are fucking stupid because it's so nuanced. Now it's like we need to tie things to the manga, right? But then they throw things in like we're anime only, like Miss Pizza and characters like that were only in the Dragon Ball Z anime, or Gregory. So again, things are weird. Anyways, we're gonna get out of here, y'all. Let me see what the poll results were. It says here, okay, this is one of the closest polls in history, folks. 111 votes. Please vote now. Please vote. Right now, Toyotaro's winning 51-49, bro. That is,
I guess the poll is mainly about Toyotaro's approach to Dragon Ball versus Torishima's. I would say that's
well. Who do you agree with? Yeah, exactly.
I would say that I agree with Toyotaro in terms of maintaining the spirit of Dragon Ball within Dragon Ball. I do think that Dragon Ball needs to be, it needs to maintain its character and its spirit and what it is as a product, and I think that should come number one. But I do agree with Torishima that, the cultural context should be considered. I do agree with him that there is improvements that can be made. So I have mixed feelings about it. Like, I don't necessarily agree with the idea that Toyotaro needs to become too much of his own thing, because I'm afraid that would have a negative impact on Dragon Ball. But I do agree with some of the things that he said. I have mixed feelings about what a lot of Torishima said. I would say the first half of our video today, I was very, very skeptical about a lot of the things that Torishima was said. But that second half, I was agreeing with almost everything he said there. So I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah, and that's why we like to have these nuanced conversations, because Jordan is in his mid-30s and I'm 41 now. And at this point, and I'm just going to keep it real with y'all, I think I'm starting to age out of the Dragon Ball fandom a little tiny bit. I'm an OG now. And it's not you guys in the chat or my supporters here on the channel or even my collaborators. It's the fact that there's new people in this in the fandom now who are like in their teens, and I can't relate to them at all. I can relate to Gen Z and boomers and what do you call it? Millennials, but Gen Alpha is basically TikTok brain, and it's very difficult for me to relate with them. And thank you so much for the kind words. I do look 30, but the point I'm trying to make is I'm 41, and having these discussions where these fucking Dragon Ball fans spaz out, it's really obnoxious and annoying. And like for example, when people started cussing out Torishima for having his opinion, you're just a bunch of fucking little rat bastard kids, bro, right? And it's just annoying because you know what I mean? I'm a grown man, bro. Show a little respect,
So there is one thing I want to talk about before we go. And this is something that I've talked about privately with my friends and stuff like that. Now, the loudest voices on the internet, and this is particularly relevant because of this video today and the fact that a lot of Western fans are starting to, their criticisms and stuff are starting to reach Japan and starting to have an impact on Japan. This is very, very relevant. That can be good, and it can also be bad. It depends on who they're listening to. Now, I do have faith that as a company, they're not going to listen to the loudest idiots. Okay, Torishima kind of just showed us that they're not going to listen to the loudest idiots, which I'm very, very happy about. But I have seen this trend in media, particularly in the modern era, where people will say things online. They'll be very, very loud and critical of a product, And certain products and certain, I'm not going to name names, but there's certain companies and certain people who make media who take those people too seriously and then ruin their products by listening to that criticism and taking it too seriously online. Just because there's a lot of people who are upset about a product or say that it's bad, yada, 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 that does not mean that they are right. That is popular opinion fallacy. There is a lot of like really loud, large groups of people who will say that something is bad and they will be objectively wrong. So it is very, very dangerous. The situation that we're in right now is very, very dangerous in the sense that, you know, it is possible that some of the loudest voices would have an impact on the products and the media that we love so much. And when you're talking about things online, this is why it's very, very important to do your research. And this comes back to what Torishima was saying. Don't just yap. Don't just get on Twitter and be yapping about things without any context or any understanding of what's
they're
going
very
on.
emotional, and they're also very emotional, Jordan.
That
very
has a negative impact on all media. Okay, the more well-read and more well-researched you are, the better you can make actual criticisms that will improve media and improve the entertainment that you care so much about. So I just wanted to make sure that I got that out of the way, because I do, and I've seen this particularly with the comic book industry here in the West. Just because there's a lot of loud voices who are criticizing something does not mean that you should bend around all of those loud voices online and ruin your product. And I've seen that happen with a lot of Western products, and I'm glad that Torishima seems to have the opposite attitude, and he's not taking these people too seriously. And I hope that that attitude carries over to Shueisha and Toei as a whole, and they don't listen to the loudest, dumbest voices out there, and they do continue to make sure that Dragon Ball maintains its essence as a product and remains Dragon Ball. That's my biggest concern, is that I want Dragon Ball to stay Dragon Ball. I don't want it to become a completely different product. I want it to maintain its essence and its spirit. And in order for it to do that, it is also important for you as fans to make sure that you're not just making blind, dumb criticisms of the product. Now, I am happy that Torishima and these people don't seem to be taking that too seriously. But if you're going to criticize something, please, I'm begging you, take all of this stuff into consideration. Do your research. Watch The Mangalorean before you start like making criticisms, because it does seem like Torishima is going to rip into you if you don't. So that's all I wanted to get out.
Yeah, no, it's media literacy. Don't forget, y'all. Look at this, bro. This is cute. How has the manga for Super been recently? That's funny. So before we get out of here, don't forget, guys, tomorrow at 1:00, I will be on Twitch watching Dragon Ball Z in high definition in HD. We're going to be watching 3 episodes, 136. I think it's 136 to 138 or something like that. It's in that group, which is basically the Android 17 and 18 waking up. So make sure that you're there for that. Make sure you're there for that, and it should be a good time. Jordan, any final thoughts? Anything you want to plug before we get out of here? And thank y'all for being here with us. I had a good time.
Yeah, make sure you check out my channel, Jordan the Dragon Lee. Go check out Keiko Daimon on Dragon Ball Multiverse. Also, I did another fan comic called Dragon Ball Infinity that's on the Tao of Dragon Ball website, hosted by Derek Padula. Go check all of that out. I would appreciate it.
Hold on. No, Phoenix, you did. I am not pissed off at you. You have my word. I'm not mad. I am not mad. Ask anybody in the chat why your question was funny. You asked what the story is about the Dragon Ball Super manga recently. That's funny, and you don't know why. Is that your cat?
Yeah, it's my cat. Yeah,
I heard him.
They got tired of waiting on the stream to end.
Anybody who's still paying attention knows why it's funny. Yes, I will be streaming that event live. Also, next Thursday, I will be here for I'm bringing back Vanner 64. We're going to be talking about the new color corrected Dragon Ball Z, you can never go back to watching Dragon Ball again without this color correction. And you need to check it out. If you're wondering what the fuck I'm talking about, go to Instagram or Twitter, twitter.com/EmperorBigD, or Instagram, which is Real Geekdom 101. And you need to watch the clips that I'm uploading on there of scenes from Dragon Ball Z. Then you'll understand that the color correction is, bro, I got emotional, Jordan, this morning because I've been waiting for something like this my whole life. They subtitled all the credits. Every animator gets credit. Everything's been subtitled. Everything it's pristine, Jordan. I've been waiting for this my entire
I'm happy
life.
for you, bro. I'm very happy for you. That's
You
all.
should be happy for you, motherfucker.
Oh, I am happy, but I didn't almost cry. So
Yeah, but I'm a big pussy, bro. Listen, fucking when it comes to Dragon Ball, listen, I've been waiting 30 motherfucking years for a version of Dragon Ball like this one. And I taught the Seed of Might today, and I told them, I said, you know, I'm gonna give you a fucking blowjob all day today. And they're like, on social media, I'm like, yeah. And then one guy goes, oh, I prefer a real one. And I'm like, I don't know about that one, bro, but I'll get you. I'll give you a verbal one. Anyways, y'all, see you tomorrow. Please stop by the stream and next week. Take care. Have a good one. And ciao.